You said no sound. Can you hear me? Let me know if this is better. Let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if you can hear me. You can hear me? Okay. Is it good? Okay. Hit 1 if the audio and video is good. Hit 2 if it's not. Hit 1 if the audio and video is good. Hit 2 if it's not. Thank you for letting me know about the audio. I didn't even realize that I didn't even have the webcam mic on. All right. Hit 1 if everything is good. Everything is good? Okay. All right. So family, those of you who are coming in, make sure you guys share this video. I didn't get a chance to push it out on Facebook yet because we had a late start again. I was having Wi-Fi issues here at the hotel, and I think it's based on the amount of users that is on the hotel's Wi-Fi. So right now, because it's getting later, looks like it's easing up some, so the connection might be better. Y'all saying 1? Okay, cool. All right, cool. All right, so I'm gonna give it a moment. I'm gonna let y'all to come on in. I'm gonna let y'all come on in. And this is my first time using this webcam, by the way, that I purchased some time ago. But I see that it's working great. You know, typically I'll use my Sony camcorder right here, the ZV-1, which is very portable, as you can see. This is the one I use when I'm at home doing my Wi-Fi. I mean, my live streams over Wi-Fi. This camera does a great job. This one is supposed to do 1080p HD at 60 frames per second, uncompressed, so you don't get no artifact anything with the image, but it requires a great deal of bandwidth and throughput for it to be optimal. I know some of y'all like, Divine, why are you always using those IT terms? I'm not an IT. Simply what it means is that I need the speed and I need the space, right, for the data to go through. So the throughput is your speed, and the bandwidth is the amount of space that you're pushing this data through, or this traffic through, this internet traffic through. So we'll see. All right. Thank you, Ryan Smith. I appreciate that. All right. So again, family, make sure you share this link anywhere, everywhere. Hit the like button if you're enjoying the content already, and if you're enjoying the content throughout the session. I'm gonna chat with y'all for a little bit. Yeah. So Oriyahu, it will be there soon. I was kind of getting wrapped up and getting everything prepared for this trip in Raleigh that I'm at right now. So that's why you didn't see anything on there, but it will be there at ASAP. All right. As soon as I touch back and get back, it'll be up and running for y'all. All right. So I'm going to give a couple of shout outs in a second. But again, share the video. All right. Hold on 1 second. Okay. I have to fix my kufi. I think it's all good now. Yeah, it's good. All right. So what's going on, family? This is your brother DivineProspect, Kingdom Harbinger Ministries. We in the building. We are broadcasting live from Raleigh, North Carolina. So if you are in Raleigh, North Carolina, or the surrounding areas, you need to be at our event tomorrow. Well, yeah, 6 minutes. Tomorrow, Saturday, is going down at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be at the Embassy Suites at Raleigh Crabtree, which is 4700 Creedmoor Road, and that's 27912 is the zip code, if I'm not mistaken, in Raleigh, North Carolina. All right. The flyer is up on all social media. If you go to the community tab on this YouTube channel, you'll see the flyer there as well. The details in the description. If you need to reach out to us for any reason, you can contact us on the phone number, which is 678-430-3832. All right. You can call that number at any time, especially anytime tomorrow, especially if you're trying to come to the event, and we'll definitely grab your call. All right. Give you instructions, everything like that. So we would love to see everybody in the Raleigh, Durham, and surrounding area come through to this event if you can make it. You know, we finally touched down here. We said we're supposed to be coming here some time ago. We've been fighting against the regulations, you know, for COVID. You know, we were supposed to be here about 2 months ago, but COVID was winning, you know, and now COVID is losing. So now we have an opportunity to, you know, start taking advantage of that by traveling again and going where we need to go, and physically setting up our chapters so that way we can translate all the stuff we talk about online into real world usage. And that's the most important thing, right? And I think that that's how KHM stands out, is that we're not just talking it behind a YouTube screen. We're actually in the community doing it, right? So I try to make myself available, visible, accessible, and trying to go to as many cities as we possibly can so we can get the work done. All right. So Sharpening Swords Ministries, you said you're also in Toronto. Well, Toronto is one of the cities, international cities, that we will be setting up a chapter in. We have several people in Toronto, but we're going to be in London before we touch down in Toronto. All right. And hopefully we're trying to do London this year, if all goes well, y'all willing. All right. So the next chapter launch after this is in July is Houston. And then in August, we'll be in New York, Tampa, and New York. Tampa, I don't know if it's going to be official launch. I'm not sure yet, but we'll be definitely be in Houston next month, and then Tampa and New York. All right. And then after New York, our next trip that we plan, and we'll see how it goes, will be in London, UK. Okay. Zadek Yehuda says, I'll catch you tomorrow, my brother. Awesome. Look forward to see you, man. Yaakov Shaul, yes, I know you would definitely be here, my brother. I know that for sure. Shout out to my brother Kenneth Yashar Shalom King. How you doing? Kevin Power in the building. Ernest Higgs. Let's see. What else? The Rob Wax Show. You said sound. Is the sound bad, y'all? Does it sound okay? Yaakov Shaul, you're absolutely correct. And that's the main thing, is if we can find, you know, places like that so we can have shalom or serenity. You understand what I'm saying? And so we get it permanently when the Most High intervenes. All right. Shout out to Lisa Anderson in the building. Alexander McCaskill, shalom. Justin Fierson, shalom. King 876. Benjamin Israel, shalom. The Black Harib, shalom. Coy Walker, shalom. Karen Gittins, shalom. Royal Gem, shalom. Hebrew for Life, shalom. Black Av, shalom. AJ Bethia, shalom. Let me see who else. Eric Whitlow, shalom King. Sandra Curie, shalom Elder. Shalom to Donna T, Paul Brassfield, the True People of the Bible, shalom. You Taylor 7777, shalom. Said this is my first live with KHM. Welcome home. Shout out to Scott Garrett Headley, shalom. Janelle, shalom. Sister V Love, shalom. Lynn loves Yah, shalom. Dante Fortson, shalom, shalom. I'm gonna keep you in my prayers, my brother. Please pray for my brother Dante Fortson. He's trying to get some stuff together on his end, so he can really use your prayers. Please pray for my brother. Reach out to him, show him your love and support. All right. Shout out to Main Man, shalom. Jalon Israel, shalom. Mac hashtag Ados Lee, shalom. Sharon Hammond, shalom. Let's see. Who else we got up in here? LAE, shalom. Praise the Most High 7, shalom, shalom. Let's see. Sonia Wright, shalom. Ebony Haynes, shalom. Restore Holistic Herbal Wellness, Sister Shamira, shalom. D. Glenn Royal, shalom. Moray, shalom to Jack L. Black, shalom. Let me see who else we got in here. Vincent Lemon, shalom. Remarkable Ministries, shalom. My executive assistants are out here with me as well. Thank y'all for holding me down as always. And you'll be able to meet all of us if you're here in Raleigh or the surrounding areas. All right. Shout out to my brother Jermaine in the building. Warfare, Rebirth of a Nation, shalom. Or Yahoo Ben Shem, shalom, Elder. Shalom. Let's see who else we got up in here. Who else we got? Deborah Newsom, shalom, Deborah. J Lockhart 25. Mother Beulah in the building. Shalom. Ruach and Hamashiach. Shalom. Shalom. Let's see. Angel Castillas Jr. Shalom. Yahweh Asatawa. Shalom, sis. Michael Holland. Shalom. Just call me text. Shalom. Yes, just call me text. We in Raleigh. So please, if you can make it here, it's 12 a.m. now Eastern Standard Time. Make it here today at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, the flyers plastered all over social media. I have it on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and even on the community tab here on this YouTube channel. Click on the community tab. You'll see the flyer with the details. Again, it's going to be at the Embassy Suites at Raleigh Crabtree, 4700 Creedmoor Road, Raleigh, North Carolina. All right. So if you can make it, we want to meet you. Let's build fellowship, network, all the fun stuff. All right. Somebody says buffering. All right. Let me switch over. Hold on. Let me switch over. Let me switch over. Hold on, y'all. I'm going to switch over. Okay. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, this was the issues I was having with this. All right. Let me know if this is better. Let me know if this is better. Let me know if this is better, family. Let me know if this is better. Shout out to Jordan's Cadet. Shalom. He said the great antagonist has arrived. Who was that? We got another resident troll in the building. Let me know who you spotted out. Shout out to Angie. Love Yah. Shalom. Let me see. Mr. Black Culture. Shalom. Roland R. Walker. Shalom. Sonia Wright. Shalom. Zeph in the building. Shalom. What's going on? Elijah Yisrael. Shalom. My brother Raphael. Shalom. What's going on, King? Let's see. I think I got everybody. My sister 916 Shan in the building. What's going on, sis? What's going on? All right. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and get started, man. So again, I said it a million times for those who just joined. We are in Raleigh, North Carolina. Right now, we have an event later on today, and at this event later on today, we're going to discuss KHM. We're going to network. We're going to strategize, and there's free food. Admission is free. All of these events that we have, we don't charge a dime for admission, and we feed you for free. So if you want to come and eat our food, that's fine. We okay with that. You understand what I'm saying? And everybody that's been to our previous sessions, they know what it is. Shout out to DJ in the building. Shalom, what's going on? All right, so come out, fellowship with us, strategize with us, network with us. You know what I'm saying? Eat free food. You know what I'm saying? Hear this presentation that I have to give, which is similar to the ones I've given previously, but you get to experience it live. And then Sunday, we have our luncheon around 1 p.m. So we just, that's more informal. We go out, we eat, we chill, we talk, you know what I'm saying, and build, you know what I'm saying? So I'm just excited that we're getting back into the swing of things and doing our chapter launches, and look forward to Houston, which is going to be huge, New York, Tampa, and London. London has to be huge as well. So if you're in the UK, we will be there soon. Hold your horses. We're going to be on our way. All right, we're on our way. Jordan is crazy. Jordan, no, you the security, man. The security can't be the antagonist. Shout out to Sister Consuelo F in the building. Shalom. Jonathan, the Nazarene. Shalom. Do it for the nation. Shabbat Shalom. So have y'all seen the Sister E show that I did? If you've seen the Sister E show, hit 1. If you missed it, hit 2. Hit 1 if you've seen the show I did with Sister E earlier this week. If you missed it, hit 2. But if you missed it and you're hitting 2, you need to go back and type in Sister E, DivineProspect. We had an awesome build, man. Awesome build. People loved it. We kind of went into breaking down the scriptures, showing you what tools to use, how to use the lexicon, all that fun stuff. We went in. You know what I'm saying? So you need to go back. Shout out to Talisha Yana, building Wide Awake. Shalom. I see y'all. So go back and check it. Vanessa Landis. Shalom. What's going on? Go back and check it out, man. A lot of y'all did see it. Some of y'all didn't. Go back and check it. So after this, or you can wait. It could be a Sabbath show that you can watch. We did a great show dispelling a lot of, misconceived, myths that people make and claims that they make in our community and outside of our community, and simply show people how to do the study for themselves. And that's what we do here. Right. Shout out to Truth Seeker, Dina Charles, Nakara. Peace. What's going on? Do it for the nation. Dream Sky Lover. Shalom, sis. So we dealt with things such as, women wearing pants. We dealt things such as Baal. Why is the head of household called Baal? and he's also the husband to the wife, and why there's no word for husband and no word for wife in the Hebrew culture. They don't have words for husband or wife in biblical classical Hebrew. It doesn't exist. The closest you get is Ish for man and Baal. Baal. That's what they call the husband. His name is Baal. So, it is what it is. But, this is all just previews of what we do in the classes. In the classes, all we do is break down the scripture. So there's no distractions. We pick a passage and we just work it. You know what I'm saying? And I give you all of the methods, the tools, and the sources in order to break it down. You know what I'm saying? You start off with the problem question and then you move from there. There's always some kind of nuance that you gloss over when you read the text that we get you to hone in on. And that's the most important thing, if we can get you to do that. You know what I'm saying? So Kevin Powell, you said Amos 6:3. Raphael, yes, that's correct. Shout out to Elder Leslie Fields in the building. Shalom, Elder. Can't wait to see you, your daughter, and the rest of our New York squad. We'll see y'all soon. Thank you for holding down the fort. You and your daughter, y'all are some wonderful people, man. And when we get to New York, hopefully everybody gets to meet y'all. Y'all are some great people. Thank y'all for all y'all do. Shout out to Sister Lizzie Liz in the building. Shalom, K Israel. Shalom. What's going on? So what I'm doing here, just talking about updates, promoting the Raleigh chapter launch later on today, and Q&A. So I don't mind if you throw Q&As out there. We'll deal with it. Shout out to my brother Dennis McMillan in the building. Shalom. We'll deal with the Q&As. So Just Call Me Sex, you said the text does say our ancestors were from Canaan. Interesting. Okay, so Amos, you said Amos 6:3. Do you want me to address Amos 6:3? And you want to know through textual criticism, you said a KJV doesn't have it, but a Septuagint does. Now, that is not abnormal. If you know that the Septuagint and the text that's used for the KJV are two different manuscripts and not the same manuscript. So let me kind of break it down for you. So if I had a Hebrew manuscript, one Hebrew manuscript, and what I did was I translated it in Greek here and in English there, and I was to compare the English and the Greek together, and I see that some stuff is missing or left out, then I could say, hey, somebody took it out purposely. And why did they do that? So I'd have to go into the translation notes to see if there's something there, preface, see if there's something there, or even in the appendix to see if something's there. And if I don't see any of that there, then it's like, okay, why did they do that? However, the Septuagint is a translation of a Hebrew manuscript that we no longer have. And the KJV comes from another Hebrew manuscript. So those manuscripts, when compared to each other, are going to have what's called textual variance because they're not translated from the same manuscript. All right. So I just want to get you to understand that, my brother, you and anybody else that's watching. Warfare Rebirth of a Nation. Yes, we plan to go to Ohio, but that won't be until next year. So next year we'll be in Ohio. We're thinking about Canton or Columbus. But or Cleveland, if you have any suggestions, let us know, So Lynn loves Yah. Yes, we do. But it's not extensive yet. So that's something that I think that we wanted to address because a lot of people do bring that up. And I've done a lot of like one-on-one sessions, teleconferences and stuff in the past with different groups and congregations on that. Some congregations needed mentorship on how to address those issues that are happening in their congregations, so I mentored them, helped them out with it or whatever. But it's a very fascinating study when you look into it to see what is our position on that, right? Why do we hold the position that we do? Why it's unfaltering? And if somebody decides that that's the lifestyle for them, that's fine, but you just can't co-opt it in this culture because American culture allows a wide variety of things that are taboo in Israelite culture. So if you want to be a Black American, then you're entitled to do whatever you want. Like they say, it's a free country, right? But if you're part of the Israelite culture, there are certain things that you have to work out of you and leave it in the world, right? So, and there's reasons for that. right? There's reasons why the culture, because the purpose of the culture being formulated was to deal with societal ills, right? It had to address the societal ills of its day, right? In order for the community to be at shalom, peace, and in order for them to thrive, right? So what they did was the culture was then codified into a legal system that was applied for a national application, right? And this is when the Israelites went into the land and it became a polity in the land, right? So this is very important. So if you're interested in anything on that, yes, there's some videos that I touched on it in the past. But if you want like more details on that, you can call us at 678-430-3832, Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Set up an appointment and we'll do a one-on-one with you or whoever else and kind of give you more background on that until we do an official lecture on that. Okay. Let's see. So the KHM Holistic Research Paradigm for Bible Study classes has not started yet. I know a lot of y'all chopping at the bit. Some of y'all email me almost every day saying, when is it going to start? Some of you email me every Tuesday saying, when is it going to start? Yes, I know. Yes, I know you guys want it. And I'm telling y'all, it'll be there very soon. Just bear with me. But you'll know it's official when I announce it on here. When I say, hey, on this day, we're starting at this time, boom, boom, boom. Right? So when you hear me say that, and we have a flyer that's a placeholder that's going to be revised, when I promote the flyer on here and on all social media, then you know that it's official and you'll have the timing on when it's done, right? We're going to try to do it every Tuesday in the evening, okay? Every Tuesday around 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to try to do it, all right? Somebody said Cincinnati, okay. All right, so let's see. Chicago, yes, Chicago's on the list. Definitely shout out to my brother Jermaine Howell in the building. Shalom. Chicago is already on our list. I don't know what part of Ohio you want me to do. Some people saying Cincinnati, some people saying Cleveland, some people saying Columbus. He said Canton is gross. Bro, some people from Canton might be on here. You're going to start a beef in the chat. What's going on? Shout out to my brother O'Shea White. Like I said, O'Shea, we will be in Houston soon. So make sure you come out to our Houston event next month. Dream Sky Lover says, any updates on the mixtape? Yes, the mixtape is available right now. So you can, the link is in the description below. And you can click on that link to pay for it. And then once we do our listening party, then we're gonna send the link out for everybody to access it. All right. And if you want a physical CD, you have to email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com so we can get you the physical CD. But most people want the digital version anyway. All right. Shout out to Cheryl in the building. Shalom. Let me see who else is up in here. Nina Bina. Shalom, sis. All right. So Roland R. Walker says, when in Houston? Houston, we're looking to be in Houston the 16th, 17th, and 18th of July. I wanted to do it the 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th of July, but that might be pushing it because that's only 2 weeks from now. It's not enough preparation time and, getting finances in order and everything. So we might do it on the 16th, 17th, and 18th, okay? If you're interested for our Houston chapter, right? Because these trips are not cheap. They cost money for everything that we do. Even the free food that we give y'all, nobody's giving it to us for free. It costs money, right? So traveling costs money. The expenses for the venue costs money. Promoting costs money. All of that costs money, right? So, we need some time, at least 3 weeks to kind of recoup, before we can go to a next city. But Houston is next on the list, all right? Shout out to Moshe the Hebrew. Shalom. When are you going into the lesson on how Israelite children lived? So I was going to go into that until, some randomness happened and I had to address the randomness. But I want to go back into that because that is extremely fascinating, right? Because it's something that you can also share with your children once you understand it. And you can kind of observe your children today to see if there's any semblance of what the children back then experienced, right? It's very fascinating because there's not a lot written on that subject matter. However, there are a few authors that have dived into it, and I was going to share about 2 or 3 of them with y'all. So I still plan on doing that in an upcoming Freestyle Friday. All right, so sorry I didn't get to do it before, but that's the nature of Freestyle Friday. We take on anybody that wants to come on. They have an issue, a grievance, and they want to get on the platform and have a dialogue. We open it up, for people to talk and have discussion. That's what makes this show unique, because you don't see a lot of other shows with mores and teachers and congregation leaders speaking where they're opening up their platform for people to challenge anything that they're saying. Like we welcome that. And I think that that's one of the unique fingerprints that Freestyle Friday has, is that we do open the panel up for those type of discussions, right? And it's very organic. And I allow it as a teaching experience. Sometimes people say, oh, why you let people on? Everybody need a voice. Well, it's not about giving everybody a voice. Is being able to address their concerns, because I want people to understand that this ministry, we don't run from any challenge that comes our way. We confront it, we deal with it head on, and that's why we're expanding, because we want to bring the same essence in any city that we physically set up shop in. You know what I'm saying? Because there has to be a place where you can come for peace and comfort and answers and understanding. You know what I'm saying? And how can I be proactive, make a difference, leave an impact? Sometimes you got to deal with difficult questions first, to kind of open people up and convince them that what you're looking to do, your objective, is actually sound, right? So you have to address these things, and that's why we do it. Shout out to Sister Jill C in the building. Shalom. All right. Shout out to my brother Yakanan Ben Israel. Shalom. All right. Thank you so much, brother Raphael. I try my best. Like I said, I'm not new to dealing with difficult people. Been doing it for years. You know what I'm saying? And in this truth, I've been doing it for years. Even people who don't share the same worldview as us, And again, on this show, if you're new to the show, we've talked to almost everybody you could think of from every walk of life. Okay. I had a 17-year-old Caucasian kid on here, one of our past Freestyle Fridays. Had a great build with him. You know what I'm saying? So you never know what you're going to get on this channel. And more particularly Freestyle Friday is because it's freestyle. So I may come with something that I want to share, but anything can happen. And that's the excitement about watching the show. You never know what's going to go down. All right. Shout out to my brother Yawasop, son of light. Shalom. Shalom. All right. All right. I'm going to go back to it. I'll push it off to when I'm back home, probably this upcoming Friday, because I'll have more time to get back to my notes on that. You know what I'm saying? So I don't have everything here with me, when I'm on the go, but I do have enough here in case I need to do a show like this, right? All right. So Truth Seeker is saying break down Revelation chapter 1 verses 14 to 16. All right. Anytime, elder, whenever I hear this from my elders, I'm encouraged to know that I'm on the right path and that I'm making a difference. Elders, we need the approval of our elders again. And we not just any of our elders, but our righteous elders in this walk. We need their approval again, right? We have to fix the relationships between, the younger generation, my generation above me, and then our elder generation. Society has created a huge divide, between various generations, and, Torah culture is something that is pervasive. You know what I'm saying? It goes through all cultures, and it can fix almost the same problems that every culture experiences. And one of the reasons why we're out of whack is because our elders were not groomed in this culture, so they can then groom us. So a lot of repairing has to be done. Reparation is not just financial. They're emotional, they're mental, they're physical, they're spiritual, etc. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what you mean by that, Dennis. What are you saying? What messianic discussion? Am I missing something? All right, let me go to Revelation chapter 1. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Dennis. Give me some more detail, my brother. All right, so you want more information on Revelation chapter 1, verse 14. What are you asking specifically? And don't forget, family, if you are in Raleigh, North Carolina, or the surrounding areas, we are here Okay, come join us at our KHM Raleigh chapter launch event. That will be at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today at Embassy Suites at Raleigh Crabtree, 4700 Creedmoor Road, Raleigh, North Carolina. All right. All right. So you want me to just explain this? Shalom to Mr. Jizzo, 1977. Shalom, Gerald Wilkins. Peace. What's going on? All right. Paul Brassfield. Shalom. Zion Lex wants me to debate the mighty Hebrew. Gotta call him and talk to him about that. I didn't know. What? Maybe y'all can inform me. What am I missing? I've been out the loop trying to plan this trip and do other stuff, so I don't even know what's going on. What are we supposed to be discussing? A build, Zeph? Okay. So he wants to build on what? Shout out to Stanley Fields. Thank you so much for the donation. We truly appreciate that. Shalom to my brother John and Dorsey. Shalom. So Zeph, Dennis, Leslie, whoever, please tell me more details. Yes, Asantu, I just found that out today that he called. So the number he called is the 678 number y'all see there. And if any of y'all have called me on that number, you got our answering service. So we have a live dedicated team that works from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time that answers calls, right? Our KHM answering service. They answer calls for us. So yes, he did. You say he left a message. He did. I don't even know. Y'all telling me stuff that I don't even know. I didn't even know this was going on. Let me see. Hold on. Yeah, now I gotta look at my phone. Man. That's how you know I got 1,000,001 things going on. I don't see no mixed calls, but I know if he called the 678 number, which I was told he did, I missed it. So Adaya Yisrael, I was just talking to my executive team about that. We do have several of them in the community. We have one out in Georgia that we will be setting something up in the future. So that's something that I'm big on, and I would love for the opportunity to engage in it more and get more people in the community engaged in it as well. So yeah, so you said, so any of my mods or admins, drop that link that I missed the show, drop that link in the chat, or somebody email it to me at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com, and I'll check it out, right, when I get back. So I won't do it while I'm here, but when I get back, I'll check it out. All right. Okay, I got it. Yeah, what's up? No problem. So, okay. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with that. You know, he probably doesn't know what my position is on that. I know that he, Mighty Hebrew, good peoples, man. Every time I met the brother in person, we always had good builds, man. Good people from my perspective. I know he's made some brazen claims about the New Testament and, you know, people that teach from New Testament and Jesus and stuff like that. And the brother's entitled to that. You know what I'm saying? The only thing that I would do in addressing those things with the brother is looking at things from a more historical perspective, right? Going into the intertestamental period, looking at connections from what we call the Tanakh, going into the Talmud, and references, you know, historical references to that individual Yeshua. You know, looking at other you know, extra biblical texts, we call extra biblical texts and stuff like that, to explain who Yeshua is. Academia does not anymore argue that he did not exist. They know that there was a historical Yeshua Bar Yosef that existed. The argument is, how well does the Gospels reflect his actual life, right? And how reliable are the gospel texts? And there's tons of books written on this already. So if he wants to have that discussion, I have no problem. You know, I just need him to understand that my position is pretty unique. And those of you who've been following this channel, you understand that, you know. Where's the brother that asked me to? Okay, Truth Seeker. So you said his head and his hairs were white. So you want me to do what? You want me to let you know if it's, what does that mean by his head and his hairs? Is that what you're saying? So let's go to Matthew chapter 6, verse 17. Okay. All right, hold on. Let's do this. Let's go to, let me pull up. Let's go to Matthew, and then we're going to get into Psalms. Let me show you this. Leviticus chapter 8, verse 12. All right, let me see if I can help you address this. Okay, hold on one second. Deroyahu Bendora, you'll be able to read it on Patreon. That's where it'll be published first, but it will be public after all the paperwork and stuff is done with the Institute. They'll publish it, I think, on their site or somewhere. But I haven't published the full thing yet until they take care of it, and that's their suggestion. So everything is settled paperwork wise and everything else. They don't want it public. So after everything is said and done, then we'll make it public. But you'll see it first on the page on Patreon, and then later on you'll see it public everywhere else. Okay. But if you have any questions about it, let me know. Jay Fearson, yeah, so my flight was delayed 3 hours getting here. So that was not good. So yes, I'm a bit tired, but you know, it's all good. Even when I'm tired, I still got energy to talk and to build and share and stuff like that. Yeah, so okay, so let's go to Matthew chapter 6, verse 17. All right, so let me share my screen. Okay, so there we go. All right, 6 and 17 says, but when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face. So we got the word head and face there. That your fasting may not be seen by others, but by your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Right. So when we go into the interlinear, so we can get more details and what this is referencing to see if it lines up to what we see in the book of Revelation. We see here the word kefalim is here, and it's similar to the word kefar, right, where we get kippah from, or where we get the word kippur from, which means to cover or covering. Kaito prosopon, right, or your face, right? So when we go to Revelation chapter 1, verse, I think you said verse 14, we have the word here, kephale here, and then it says that's the head of him, and the hairs was white. So the head of him and the hairs are white, because this is an adjective. That's what white is. It describes what's going on with the noun. But his hairs white, or white hairs, as if wool, white as snow, and the eyes of him are like a flame of fire. So The word face, we don't see that here in verse 14, but we do see the word head here. Now, the key thing is, what does head mean? When it says head, is it representing his entire face? Is it representing a particular part of the body? Well, that's why I went to Matthew, because Matthew says to anoint your head. So what was the anointing of the head in Israelite culture? Well, let's go into Leviticus chapter 8, verse 12. Okay, let's go to Leviticus chapter 8, verse 12. All right, and it says, he poured some of the anointing oil on Aaron's head and anointed him to consecrate him. Okay, so when it says his head and his hairs is white, does the head mean the entire face? Well, if so, that's interesting, because we see in the book of Matthew, it made a distinction between head and face. Here it's just talking about the head. So the anointing process, we're going to see if that refers to the entire face. So here it says he poured some of the anointing oil on Aaron's head. And when we go to Psalm 133, verse 2, and that's the scripture that talks about unity, it gives us an idea of how this process happened, okay? So when you anoint your head with oil, you've heard that phrase before. It says, it is like the precious ointment upon the head that ran down upon the beard, even Aaron's beard that went down to the skirts of his garment. So when Aaron is being anointed, typically it's olive oil. Sometimes they had other oils, but it's mostly olive oil that was then poured on the top of the head, and then it ran down the face. It was poured on the top of it, and they let it run till it got all the way down to the skirt of his garment, right? So when it says his head and hairs were white like wool, it's referring to the top of his head, where the hairs is at. That's what it's referring to. It's not saying that he was a white person. I think that's where you're getting at with that. Yo, Jacko's crazy. That's the main thing that wakes me up. You're right. I'll be on 10,000 if a troll come in. You already know how we do. All right. So Ter Lael, where does your soul and spirit go when you die? Your spirit gets inhaled back by the Creator. He takes the spirit back in. We see that in the book of Ecclesiastics. And the soul itself is left in a holding place for its redemption at some future time, according to Israelite culture. Okay. So that's what's going on there. Now, as far as this pitchfork stabbing you and you burning to death and all of that, that's another conversation altogether. Because the text, from my position, doesn't really convey that. Even when we look in the book of Luke, which is pretty much your only reference, Luke 16, to hell actually a place of fire and torment. I released an article, excellent article that was written on that subject matter, that believes what I believe, that at some point that actually was influenced from an intertestamental data, and it didn't look cohesive with the rest of Luke chapter 16 because it comes out of nowhere, right? It has a different writing style and all of that. So that's a totally separate discussion. But, according to the Hebraic thought, the spirit goes back to the Creator that breathed it, and the soul is held or detained until it is redeemed at a final judgment state. And we have a reference of that in the book of Daniel chapter 12, right? We see that there's a resurrection of these souls, and the righteous goes one way, and then those who are wicked go into contempt, right? And then you'll see something interesting when Yeshua is talking about dividing the sheep and the goats, and the sheep goes into the kingdom and the goats go to be destroyed or consumed by fire, right? But are they burning in the interim? That's a totally different conversation altogether. That's not my position. I don't hold that position. All right. Yeah, so the spirit is the breath of life, because the word spirit is ruach or pneuma, ruach in the Hebrew and pneuma in the Greek, and that simply means wind or breath, right? So that's what happens, right? It gets transferred, right? The spirit doesn't go away, it's transferred. So it's breathed into us to create a living soul, and that word nefesh meaning soul is the personality of a thing, right? So when you create the flesh and you breathe into it, the creator breathes into it, it creates this living soul, right? And the nefesh, or the soul, is the essence of who you are. The spirit is the thing that animates you, right? Animates the actual flesh, but the essence of your soul is created when that flesh and that spirit intertwine, and it creates that soul. So that is you, right? The soul is you. Okay, you're the soul. You're not the body. You're the soul. Yeshua says, "Don't fear him that can kill the body and can do no more, but fear him that can destroy the body and soul in what's called there Hades or Gehenna." Right? Well, Hades is separate from Gehenna, but sometimes they're interchanged. Right? So you're going to be destroyed. So there's a doctrine called Annihilationism, where it's believed that the body is not tormented in hell, but when judgment comes, it would be destroyed. It would cease to exist, right? It would be abruptly destroyed, right? And it would have no part in eternity, right? But those who do righteous, they will not simply cease to exist, that they will partake in eternity, right? So I have a couple of books on the Patreon that also talk about this. So shout out to the Patreon, the 24/7, 365 after party. So any of these things you're interested in, all you gotta do is go to the Patreon, type soul in the search, and books and articles will come up, right? So I share references to everything that I talk about is there on the Patreon, right? So if you have not signed up for the Patreon yet, then you need to sign up now if you're interested in that. But yes, Divine got a lecture coming up on this. I got a lecture on all this stuff. I had a lecture on a million things that pertains to just our community in general, but then I have a million lectures that I want to do for the Israelite community, and y'all want to see those lectures. So there's a wide range of lectures that I have coming soon. I'm going to revert to doing my lectures again in the fall, starting in September. In the interim, I'm going to try to, get the classes out the door, do our 2 shows, Death to Dogma, and Let's Talk About It, and then start our reality show called Divine Intervention, right? So there's a couple of things I want to get done this summer, and then I'll get back to lecturing in the fall, because I don't want to lecture from my computer screen. I like being there with people, right? So now that this coronavirus thing is dying down, I can then do lectures in person like I really want to, right? Like the way I enjoy being there, being available, being accessible. People can ask questions on the fly, stuff like that. We can promote it, get hype behind it. So I will restore that in the fall and continue doing that. But I have a different objective from now until September. All right. So it's coming soon. All right. So hopefully that answers your question, Truth Seeker. Let me know. So Giovanni Roche says, yo, Divine, what's your interpretation when Yeshua said, my kingdom is not of this world? Exactly what he said. The kingdom is not a secular kingdom, because the kingdom he's talking about that's coming is something that is not seen now, but it will be seen in a future time. And when it happens, then he's going to be a ruler in that kingdom. Okay. There's going to be more than one ruler in that kingdom. There's going to be a chief ruler and then other rulers, right? Like David will be restored back, and he's going to be a prince, a Sar in that kingdom. Yeshua is going to be one of the Melech in that kingdom, or Melechim, one of the kings in that kingdom, right? We're also going to be co-heirs, and we're going to reign with him. So we're also going to have a ruling capacity in that kingdom, right? So that's what he means by that when he says, my kingdom is not of this world. It's not a physical kingdom, right? Until it's manifested at a future tense, because he's saying that if I did have a kingdom and y'all are trying to kill me, my disciples will fight for me. And they wouldn't let me get killed. That's not going to happen. But I don't have a kingdom that you can see right now. That's what he's saying to them. But there will be a future kingdom to come. That's what starts out of Mark chapter 1, where he says, repent, for the kingdom of God is at hand. That's where he started off his ministry, talking about repent. The time has come. The kingdom of God is at hand. All right. Let me see. McGarvey, I don't know who you're talking to. Yeah, truth seeker. So I don't know. Sometimes they try to say, oh, Israelites say Jesus was black here. So let's be completely honest, and I'm gonna be objectively honest with you, right? We know that Yeshua was a man of color. Matter of fact, on my Patreon, I put an article up that was written by a white person in that field of study in anthropology that attests to the fact that Yeshua was a man of color. I mean, that's where academia is at. Outside of academia, people have all these other discussions and whatever because they don't really have a process to generate consensus on how to determine what something is, right? Just like when people argue, did Jesus exist? Academia doesn't argue about that number. They've moved past that to another conversation, but people are still behind in their studies. They're not there yet, right? So Yeshua is in a different state. Now, you remember, was called the Mount of Transfiguration, when Yeshua went up to the mount and he took 3 of his disciples with him and he transfigured right before their face and he was shining and glowing. That is his end state that they got a brief glimpse of. And remember, he wasn't by himself. He was speaking to Moshe and Elijah, okay, about the things that's going to happen to him in Jerusalem. So that same state that they saw at Mount Transfiguration is what was restored, what we saw in the book of Revelation. So that's not the state he was in while he was walking around and they were seeing him in his flesh. That's not the state he was. That's his end state that they're looking at. It's a glorified state. It's a totally different state. So the way you see him there, like when it says that his feet was brass, like it was burnt in a furnace, again, that's his end state. That's what our end state will be as well when we are glorified. That's what the text says. When we are resurrected and we are renewed and restored, that's how our end state will be. Like that's our end state. But while he was walking here, did he look like that in the flesh? No, because then he would have had the same flaming fire in his eye. People say, oh, that means he was drinking wine. No, it does not. That does not mean he was drinking wine. We got to stop just doing that type of stuff. There's no way you can validate that. Sounds good. There's no way you can validate that. What you'd have to show is any scripture that likens drinking wine to eyes flaming red. The same way that we see it as the idiomatic expression in Revelation chapter 1. You're not going to find that nowhere. It's not going to be anywhere. If somebody has a source, let me know. But from my studies, it's not there. So I don't make those type of claims, right? So Yeshua was a man of color and he was darker than me, right? That's where anthropology is at with it. So when people argue that and say, no, he's white or some other color, that's foolishness. Like academia is not even there no more there. They pass it. They know he's a person of color and he's a person that's darker than my complexion according to their restorations of it. So that's not even an argument. But when you look at his glorified state, that's not the state in which he was walking around in the flesh, because if so, you wouldn't have a Mount Transfiguration scene where he's transforming into a different state. So I just want to make sure that's clear, okay? So his head being white does not mean he was a white man. That's ridiculous, all right? When it says like wool, it's liking it to color. But wool also has a texture. Wool's not just color, but it also has a texture. And if you look at wool, wool is not always completely white. It's like an off-white color, okay? So you got to look at what sheep varieties would they have been exposed to in the region in which they was writing this. That's important, all right? So Janelle, you're telling me to unpack Genesis 3:14 to 20. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna address this for you real quick because I have addressed it before, Janelle. In prior live streams, I've addressed this. I even showed you what kind of entity this Nakash was in the garden. I told you I was a Saraf, right? So I dealt with this when I dealt with this entity because I did a whole session on this, right? But I'll go through it again for you, no problem. All right. So let me see. Let me go over it with you again. All right. Let me share my screen, and I'm gonna go through it with you briefly. I'm not gonna spend too much time on it because I've addressed it before, and you can look up the video. So Genesis 3 and verse 14. Now you said curses. Well, Adam and Eve was not cursed. So that does not mean Adam. The earth was cursed, right? That which is blessed, Yah cannot curse. Adam and Eve was blessed, so they can't be cursed. But the other things around them can be, just like the Most High blessed Ham. Therefore, Noah, when he felt violated by Ham, could not curse Ham. So he had to do the curse on Canaan. And there's a whole backstory to that. But I did I included that in a whole lecture that I did, where I talked about that, I unpacked that and explained what that was. So in Genesis chapter 3, verse 14, it says, Yod-Heh-Wah-Feh, Elohim said to the Nakash, remember I told you about a synecdoche? A synecdoche is a literary device, which is a part for a whole. And I give you the whole in the book of Numbers, where we see those fiery serpents that are biting the people because they were groaning and complaining, okay? Because you have done this, cursed are you above all livestock and above all beasts of the field. On your belly you shall go, and dust you shall eat all the days of your life. Now, let's stop there. This entity could not be a serpent because serpents are already on their belly. So the problem is when it's translated as serpent. I think serpent is not the best translation for this. The word nakash can mean a bronze one, because if you look at other variations of the same word, it means bronze. But you also got to go and think like the ancients thought, because a lot of times you see a lot of these mythical creatures that are dragons that have feet, right? They have front feet, hind feet, and they're moving and going about. So the key thing is, what is this entity here, that this particular entity is now on its belly? It cannot already be a serpent, because serpents are already in belly. So therefore, it can't be cursed with something that it already is. So it's not a serpent, right? It's a saraf. If you want to know what the sarafs look like, you gotta go to Isaiah chapter 6. All right. Nina, you said you had a question. All right, give me 1 second, Nina. Let me just unpack this real quick, okay? Shout out to Akir Sweeney in the building, Spiritual Journey TV. Shalom. All right. So Akir Sweeney, got you. I addressed this on a previous live stream, okay, where I said that position that those brothers are taking, and shout out to those brothers. Those are my brothers. I don't agree with everything that they teach, but I agree with a lot of stuff they teach, right? And I like the fact that they're making huge efforts to go into the academic realm to substantiate a lot of their claims, right? So I like that approach. But they already have a lens in which they're viewing the text. So if you're heavy into health, a lot of health gurus promote veganism, right? And veganism is not for everybody. Maybe I should do a whole lesson on that, but we discuss those things on Natural Path to Eden, okay? But anyway, so veganism is not for everybody. Veganism could be for a good amount of people, but veganism is not for everybody. If you understand nutrition, you understand the changes that occurred to the human body over time, that the human body has adapted to eating meat, and therefore some essential nutrients such as iron is best absorbed by its bioavailability in meat products, okay? And that is scientific. There's no way around that. There's only really 2 or 3 plant-based or botanical-based varieties that can actually give you a similar amount of iron that you can get from meat, but meat still has a greater substantial amount of iron. Now, when you look at migrations, eating meat was done to consume that iron, because depending upon your environment, you may need more iron in certain regions of the world than other regions of the world. There's a whole scientific reason for that, right? When it comes into human physiology and human anatomy, right? And how the body has transformed. Now, if you want to look for a scriptural basis for that, well, Lamech he prophesied that Noah, which also means rest, he would give the people rest. Like he will be a Messiah to give the people rest. Well, how did that rest come in the form of? Well, prior to that, we only see a prescription of eating plants or seed-bearing plants as a food source. However, after the flood, Most High allowed mankind to then consume meat. And it's through the consumption of meat as a means or alternative means of having to toil the earth. Because one of these things we're dealing with Genesis chapter 3 is that man will work to the sweat of his brow in order for him to eat. And not only do you have to till the earth, you're going to have thorns and thistles resisting you as a means of disrespecting you for cursing it or allowing it to be cursed. Because now it is adversarial towards man. And that's what happens when somebody's dominion is weakened. You have revolt. So man was given dominion over the earth decided to revolt against man because man became a corrupt leader because Adam disobeyed. So when you have this idea, and again, we get into health, I get heavy into health. When you have this idea about veganism is the only diet for our people, it is almost impossible for you to find that in any stage or any stratum in the realm of archaeology through excavational digs, because we know how to identify diets. And you will never see a purely vegan diet in no period of time. That did not happen. Okay. Now, what about some offshoot groups later on during the Greco-Roman period? Yes, you'll start to see this veganism thing pop up again because they believe that the meats were all corrupted. When you understand the meat markets at that time, a lot of times you had to go to certain markets to purchase meats. And because those markets were run by the Greeks and the Romans, it was believed that those places were unclean. Therefore, they abstained from consuming meat and they transitioned to becoming vegans. Okay, some of the Yahad community that we find in the Dead Sea area, those Dead Sea caves, a lot of them transitioned to that. You have some Nazarenes that later on transitioned to veganism as well because they believe that all the meat in the meat markets were tainted. That's why they didn't eat meats. Okay, so yes, actually, hold on one second. See this? This is our Natural Path to Eden. Holistic Synergy is the slogan for Natural Path to Eden. And this is a kind of Bible where we have everything you need to know about nutrition. Now, I'm going to have it taped up because I have to transport it tomorrow. But if anybody's interested in getting one of these, just let me know. But in here, we have all the fundamental building blocks. Excuse me. This is how you know I'm tired, right? Building blocks that you need to understand about health and wellness. Okay. And then I have tons of other books and stuff on it. So I could talk about health forever. You know what I'm saying? When I was on Starnetta's channel, I was talking about a lot about health because a lot of people are misinformed when it comes to health and they make these claims that's just wild and bogus. And there's no way for them to substantiate it. It sounds good, but when you're able to kind of break people down some more about it, you can tell they don't know what they're talking about. When I said, what's the difference between a mode of action? That's the key thing. What is, if I say to you, what's the mode of action? You say, oh, well, ginger is an anti-inflammatory and therefore you can drink ginger tea and it will settle your stomach. And I say, well, what's the mode of action? It's very simple. What's the mode of action? All right. How do we know that? What component of ginger actually performs that and how does it catalyze? You'd have to answer those questions. If you don't know it to that degree, then you're just going based off of hearsay. And I can tell that you don't really know what you're talking about. So just like people, when they talk about this vegan diet, a lot of people are predisposed to eating meat. Now here's the thing. In the ancient time, during the Iron Age Israel period, people did not eat meat every day. They ate meat maybe several times a month. They didn't eat meat every day. So granted, that's true. Today, a lot of us eat meat every day, right? Because you need X amount of proteins, but you can supplement it now because now we have more availability of plant-based proteins, right? They didn't have all of that back then. They didn't even have half that knowledge back then, right? That we have today, because a lot of things that we eat are indigenous to other regions that our ancestors have never visited before, right? So if you're getting plant protein from some place in South America, and you're saying, well, our ancestors ate like that, and I say, well, how is that the case? Because that item is not even grown in that region of the world. They had no knowledge of that. That could not have been part of their diet. That's just stuff that's just... So anyway, so the point I'm trying to make is that when somebody has a particular stance, and that stance is something like a biased stance, like veganism, and anything outside of veganism is wrong, is evil, and is wicked, then that will be the lens that they will utilize to drive their interpretation of the text. So they'll go to things like the gospel of peace, you know what I'm saying, which is supposed to be the Essene gospel, where they are proposing, and mind you, the Essene gospel, and anybody that pushes the Essene gospel, please show me how antiquated that text is, because it's a recent what we call literary work. It's not something that's old. You can't show old manuscripts of that. And if you're going to say, well, they were destroyed, well, give some reference. I'll give you an example. When I talk about the Aramaic version of the Gospel of Matthew, we don't have a complete version of that today. However, we have patristic sources that cite that it existed. So give me an early ante-Nicene patristic source that cites the gospel of peace or the Essene gospel. You're not going to find that. Now, will there be some references in regards to veganism amongst the Nazarenes? Yes, but the Nazarenes were not Essenes. Don't conflate the two. They're two different things. You're going to have to be pressed to show forth all of your primary sources for these things. That's why I don't really get into these discussions, because then people will have to validate that. Number two. Number three, and again, shout out to Yakai. Shout out to those brothers, Honor and Humility of St. Louis. Like I said, I'm subscribed to them on YouTube. I watch their videos from time. I don't watch everything, but I watch some videos they make from time to time. A lot of times their teachings are really good, really thorough, and I like it. Some things they say I just disagree with. I have no problem, speaking with them. Brother Yakai has reached out to me, and I have to follow up with him next week when I get back home, and he wants to have a discussion. I have no problem chatting with that brother. That's a good brother. I met him in person one time in the past. Cool peoples. You know what I'm saying? Good brother. However, there's some things that I just disagree with, and I'd rather talk to him about it behind closed doors, and I'd rather go on a show together, my show, his show, whoever's show, and talk, instead of just doing something like this, because it seems like I'm attacking, and I'm not, right? So that's why I love to have these discussions, right? But I'm simply saying is, when you have a biased position, then that's going to drive your scholarship, right? So in scholarship, you can have a bias. Everybody has a bias, but you can't let it permeate through your objective scholarship. You have to be able to tell the complete story. And with all the data that's available, the data that is pro and con to your position, you have to acknowledge it, and you have to explain why it's there. So when it comes to health, there's a lot of key things that we have to take into account. Okay. And again, the human body has made changes because it has been introduced to the consumption of meat. So the body has been predisposed physiologically and anatomically, your anatomy, to consume meat. That's just the way the body is designed now. You know what I'm saying? Now, can you be a vegan and be good? Of course. I'm not saying you can't, but you have to understand nutrition, because otherwise you have other issues that come about. Just like people that say, oh, your body has to be alkaline at all times. No. There are processes that can't work if it's alkaline. For example, your saliva. Your saliva is acidic. Your gastric juices are acidic. Your skin is acidic. Did you know that? If these things turn alkaline, guess what? You have a breakdown of those systems. And when those systems break down, for example, if your skin is too alkaline, then you can have colonization of staph infections. Yes, a lot of people that have atopic dermatitis, their skin is highly alkaline. It's off balance. It's not even keeled. So therefore, they are more susceptible to the colonization of staph. And when they do get a cut or a wound, they have what's called an opportunistic infection, because typically staph lives on the surface of your skin, but it's controlled by antimicrobial peptides that the body produces, the sebaceous oil that comes out of your hair strand and the pore that your hair strand grows out of, and also through the acidic nature of your skin. It keeps this colonization at bay. So you cannot be fully alkaline. Just like people say, oh, they say stuff like mucus is the cause of all disease. That's not true. Your body needs mucus. If you have too much mucus, that's a sign that something's wrong, but your body needs, you cannot live without mucus. Did you know your entire GI tract cannot work without mucus? Did you know that? Do you know your nasal cavity can't work without mucus? And if you have no mucus, guess what? You're going to be more prone to infection. So when you hear people say these things, you guys got to vet it, like know what they're saying and understand something about biology to kind of ask the right questions and kind of see. A lot of times I try to stay as much from moderate to beginner with people unless they are fully studied in that, and then I can have a high level discussion with them. But at a more base level, just understand that sometimes people allow their biases to dictate their scholarship. What I try to do here is I try to be objective with the information, even information that disagrees with my position. I tell you, matter of fact, on the Patreon, there's several books that I've posted on there that disagree with me, but I share it so you know what's out there. You can be prepared for it. You know how to handle it. All right. No problem, Janelle. No problem. Did I do a video on the second Exodus? UTLS 777's accent? No, I did not. I did not do anything on the second Exodus. If that's something you want, shoot me an email and I'll add it to my list. Okay. All right. So let me go through the rest of this for Janelle. Seth is also asking a question. No problem, Akir. But all I'm simply saying, those brothers were getting into the P document, which they believe is, and not just what they believe, but the Wellhausen school of thought deals with higher criticism, and they've identified 4 unique sources for the composition of what we call the Torah or the Chumash, or the first 5 books, right? You have your Yahweh source, your Elohist source, your P source, your Deuteronomy source, and your redactors. The redactors came after those 4 sources. And then they compiled everything, made some changes, and it became cohesive. But a lot of the things you'll see as far as meats that's in the P document, can you find it also from the Yahweh and Elohist document? Because if you can, those are older than the P document. Now, if you find it in Deuteronomy's document, then I understand. You can say, okay, but it's older. So if you can find anything in regards to sacrifice, the word zabach, anything in regards to sacrifice, meat, or anything else in the Elohist or the Yahweh sources, then that's going to undermine what you're saying in regards to your P document being the source for all the sacrifice, meat, and stuff like that. That's going to create a lot of difficulty. Okay. So LE, yes, I touched on that years ago. Actually, it's in one of my lectures where I show forth Haggai. So everything has to do with the signet ring. When you understand what the signet ring is in ancient Near Eastern times, signet ring represented several things depending upon who was the owner of the ring. So kings had a signet ring because they used it to seal things. Okay. And in the case of King Yakinen, it had to do with him having a royal seal, a royal signet that they used to seal documents or impress their stamp on to know that it's authoritative and it came from the king. Right. Even though sometimes those rings were stolen and things were forged, but that's another conversation altogether. So in regards to the curse of Yachanan, first of all, there's no word curse there, right? So LEE, great point, my brother. Go back to the prophecy and find the word curse there. For example, since we're already here in Genesis chapter 3, okay? And again, people say we don't teach on this channel. I don't know where that stuff is coming from. I like to say that. I probably say that forever because people come in here and say, Divine, you don't teach, you ramble. I don't ramble. There's a method to my madness, and there's a lot of information I share out there. But, if you feel that way, that's fine. If you go to BibleHub.com and you type in Genesis 3 and go to verse 14 and you click on 14, right? So that'll take us into the passage, and click interlin at the top, which are interlinear, right? and we go into it, we're going to find the word for curse, right? And if you scroll down, we have the word here, right? Aror, which is Aleph, Resh, Wav, Resh, right? Aror, this is the root word is Arar, Ara, which means to curse is the verb, right? So now go back to the prophecy of Jeconiah, Yehoiakim, several ways, Yehoiakim, different ways that they say it, and see if you find the word curse there. That's your homework. If you find the word curse there, it's okay. He was not cursed. There's no way that says that he was cursed. That is a huge deal, because you got to find out, then how do we get this term, the curse of? Well, we know the provenance of that term. It has nothing to do with the text. The text doesn't say that he was cursed. It just says that the ring was taken off. Anytime you take the ring, the signet ring off of a king, that king no longer has authority, power, and his lineage that comes after him will no longer be royal. But the moment you take that ring and put it back on, Zerubbabel, he comes from that same lineage. He received the signet ring, meaning now you're restoring the royal lineage of that king's line. And you know why his signet ring was taken? Because he was taken into captivity. He was rebellious. Babylonian king said, nah, run that to the king. Most High said, look, I'm going to restore that to you. Put the signet ring on. Read Haggai chapter 2. It goes into that. All right. So LAE, let me know. Give me the verse, and we're going to pull it up, and we're going to see if the signet ring, if the word curse is there, and see if it identifies a signet ring. Again, this is why I throw thousands of sources at you guys about the ancient Near East. You got to understand the context in which the text was written in, all right? And the things that would have been understood by the immediate audience that we have been displaced from, okay? Yehoseph, Ben Yisrael, no, they are not valid. They're not valid at all. And I would love for anybody to come on here and try to prove that to me. My thing is, anytime I disagree with something, I always open up the panel for somebody to come on and teach me. I have no problem learning. Like I said, I never lose when it comes to discussions or debates, because I'm always a student first. I'm always learning. So if somebody can come on here and show me the antiquity of the Gospel of the Nazarenes and the Nazarene Acts of the Apostles, let's have that conversation. Trust me, I've went through that school of thought, and I subscribed to it back in 2015. 2015. So this was about 6 years ago. I used to subscribe to that. I've moved past that because I realized I was being too biased. So I had to evolve past that. Right. All right. So let's get back into the serpent thing, and let me get back to it for you, sis. All right. So my brother Seth, he asks about the serpent in the book of Ezekiel. Give me the verse for that, Seth, if you're still there. All right. So book, chapter, verse says, who was the old serpent in Revelation 22? So when you look at what's called the old serpent, you have to go back and look at, all right, so look, let me see. And I did a whole live stream on this, right? Let's do this. Let's do this. All right. This is why I show the influence of the Targum on the New Testament, right? So when you go to the Targum and Targum Neophiti, that's the one that I use, because you have the Ankylos Targum, the Yarantin Targum. I use the Neophiti Targum because that's the oldest one. But if we go into that Targum, right, on Safaria, a website called Safaria, and see the breakdown of Genesis chapter 3 in there. Let me get Genesis chapter 3. And we go to the same verse. Check it out. I'm going to show you what it says. When I remember I was talking about the feet and everything like that. Let me show it to you. All right. If y'all don't know what the Targums is. So what the Targums is, they became paraphrased translations of the Hebrew text, right? So this tradition developed when the Israelites went into Babylonian captivity. They were there for 70 years. And then when they left out of Babylon captivity, you have almost 2 generations that came through, right? So what happens is in Babylon captivity, the lingua franca there was Aramaic. It was not Hebrew, right? So therefore, a lot of the subsequent generations had adopted Aramaic, but some of the older generations still knew some Hebrew, and some of the priesthood, like the Zadokites and so forth, they also understood the Hebrew. So what happens is when they're going back to the land, rebuild the temple, the walls, and the city, etc., they have found the book of the law, have the book of the law. Scholars don't know which took place, but when they had it, it was written in Hebrew, and therefore only the elders and the priestly class could read and understand it. That's why the text says in Nehemiah that when they stood to read the word, after they said it from the text, they gave the understanding, right? Because the people did not know Hebrew, so they had to paraphrase it or translate it into Aramaic. So the Targums maintains that tradition that goes back during that period of time, and they maintain that tradition. So in that tradition, you'll find things in there that you don't find in the Hebrew manuscripts. And one of them is what we're about to read in Genesis chapter 3. Now, I like the Targums more than I like the commentary that's in the Talmud, right, which is your Gemara. I don't deal with the Gemara. I like the Mishnah, which I understand the encapsulation of the oral traditions through various Sanhedrin councils that was preserved and was called the Mishnah. But the Gemara and the rest of the commentary in the Talmud, I don't subscribe to and I don't agree with. I look at it for good historical value, but that's it. The Mishnah is a little bit different. I hold that in higher regard than I do the Gemara and the other commentaries, right? Because that's just simply the rulings that has captured the oral tradition, but the Gemara is the commentary on that. So what happens with this is that this is a much older tradition from my perspective, much older tradition than what we get in the Talmud. Now, some people may argue or disagree with that, and that's fine. I think that'll be a great conversation. But at the end of the day, one thing you're going to see here that's unique is what we read in Genesis chapter 3, verse 14. And let me share the screen with you so you can see what I'm talking about, right? Again, you know, my brother told me, my brother Giovanni, when he said, Divine, man, every time I watch your show, it's not like I can just play it while I'm doing something. He said, man, you say so much stuff. I got to go back and I got to write stuff down. And I'm like, I'm sorry, my brother. We'll do more stuff that's easily consumable, like our Sabbath messages and stuff like that. But when it comes to this, like, we teach at a high level. And the objective is not to go over your head, but to bring you where we are at. I want everybody to be on the same level. And that's why we have these classes to teach you how to do these types of studies, right? So Genesis chapter 3, verse 14, and the Most High Power brought the 3 unto judgment. And he said to the serpent, because thou hast done this, cursed art you of all the cattle and of all the beasts of the field. Upon thy belly thou shalt go. And what? Thy feet should be cut off. And what? And thy skin thou shalt cast away once in 7 years. Interesting. Because when you look at snakes, they shed a little bit more often than that. And the poison of death shall be in your mouth, and dust you shall eat all the days of your life. So this is a transformation that is going on to this creature, this being, whatever this thing is being transfigured. Okay? It did not have these qualities prior, because if it did, it would not be a curse. All right? So I'm trying to show you something, trying to bring something out so you can understand that. All right? And then when you go into the next verse after that, because a person asked you, well, who's this old serpent? Well, the old serpent can either be referring to 2 things, right? It can be referring to this Saraf that we find here, right, in Bereshit chapter 3 or Genesis 3, or it could be referring to Leviathan or the ancient sea serpent. When you study the myths of Tiamat, you understand its influence throughout the ancient Near East and the Mesopotamian region. Leviathan was the equivalent in the Israelite culture of Tiamat. Okay? So just want to make sure you understand that. But it says this, and again, if anybody says, oh, this was a regular serpent, no. People say, well, how did a serpent talk to a woman? And then actually there's other texts like your Zohar and stuff like that that kind of give their opinion on that. But when you understand what a synecdoche is as a literary device, and you go back to the book of Numbers to cross-reference it with this, you understand that this is a saraf. and is a special variant of the Seraph, because Isaiah 6 talks about the Seraph that's there in the throne room of the Most High. Those are Seraphs that are there in that realm, but then there were Seraphs that was here in the earthly realm, and they had a job to do. If you read the book of Enoch calls this entity, it has a specific name, and it's one of the 200 watchers that then came unto women and took them as their wives and created offspring that became the Nephilim. Okay, the Nephilim are the offspring of these watcher intermediary deities that met on the mountaintops, because they watched mankind from the mountaintops. And what would happen was the divine council members would come down to the mountaintops, convene with these watchers, and kind of get check this out, watch how deep this is, and try to figure out, okay, what's going on in the earth? How do you know this? Well, you have a similar thing happen in the book of Job, where it says the Bene Elohim came to present themselves, and the adversary came with them. Well, this is not the adversary towards Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh, because this adversary is not antagonistic to Yah. He's antagonistic to Job. Okay, you're going to get that. You're going to get that. All right. So, and again, these are traditions that get handed down in church, and we just got to say, no, how can this thing be cursed with qualities it already had? Just like the earth did not have thorns and thistles before Adam disobeyed, because Moses said, go and eat anything. It's not going to resist you. It's only after consequences was given for the actions of mankind and the serpent that then you had transfigurations happen, right? So if you scroll down to this and go to 15, and it says, and I will put enmity between you and the woman, between the seed of your son and the seed of her sons. Now, if we were to take, and there's different ways to analyze this, right? One explanation from this comes from the book of Enoch. And that book of Enoch has to do with the Bene Elohim that we see in Bereshit chapter 6 that have sons, which are the Nephilim, by going into the women and producing their own sons to rival the seed of the woman that will come through who? That will come through Seth, right? So that's important to understand, because then you'll see why. And people say Cain is the seed of the serpent. That comes from the Zohar. The text doesn't say that, because when you learn Hebrew grammar, you have what's called a direct object marker, which shows you the nominative, which is the subject, doing the direct action onto the accusative or the object. Okay, so that means Adam knew Eve, and through that consummation, a direct production was Cain. That's the Hebrew. You can't get around the Hebrew. Hebrew is rigid. It's there. That's what the Hebrew says. You can make any opinion you want, but grammatically, you can't change what's there. You got to deal with the grammar. So the grammar does not support that Cain is the seed from the serpent. Stop that. That's not there. Okay. Thank you so much, Sister Millie Love. I appreciate the donation. All right. So Yahoo Seth, if you want to know about those sects, I have tons of sources on it. I have a ton on the Patreon as well. All you gotta do is type in Nazarene, Ebionites, or whatever. The Essenes is a different generation of groups than the Nazarenes and the Ebionites. They're not the same groups. They're different groups. Okay, and they have some distinctions between each other. So if anybody makes you think that the Nazarenes and Ebionites are the same group, which is not, you also had a group called the Way, several groups, and somebody gets you to think that the Essenes are directly connected to these groups, that's not true. They do have some of the subscriptions that the Essenes do, the Nazarenes, Ebionites, but not all of them. And one of the differences between the Nazarenes and Ebionites is that the Essenes did not hold fast to Yeshua. Yeshua didn't exist during the time of the Essenes. That's important. So you got to get your chronology in order as well. People intertwine these things, and you can't do that. You have to be very careful when you handle the text. You can't do that because you start to misconstrue things and give out false information, okay? So Seth, so you said Ezekiel chapter 1:5 to 11. Ezekiel 1:5 to 11. Let me see what you're talking about. Ezekiel 1:5. And again, I'm going to get back to that, but y'all asking me a lot of questions, so I'm trying to catch every question I can. So I apologize if this seems a bit I'm not gonna say incoherent, but if it doesn't seem cohesive in me sharing it, because I'm trying to address as many questions as coming up while we're talking about this, right? All right, so I was referring to Isaiah chapter 6, but let me see what you're saying about Ezekiel chapter 1:5. All right, I was talking about the seraph is in Isaiah chapter 6. So Ezekiel chapter 1 verse 5 says, and from the midst of it came the likeness of four living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had a human likeness, but each had four faces, and each of them had four wings. Their legs were straight. No, so that's a different creature than the seraph. The seraph is Isaiah chapter 6. Let me bring it up for you real quick. All right. Hold on. Let me share my screen. Okay, let's go Isaiah chapter 6. And it says, verse 1, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw Adonai sitting upon a throne high and lifted up, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above him stood the what? Seraphim. What they look like? Each had 6 wings, and with 2 they covered his face, and with 2 he covered his feet, and with 2 he flew. And one called to another and said, holy, holy, holy is Yod-Heh-Wavi of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. Now these creatures, we can't see their faces. In Ezekiel, we see those creatures' faces. Now, could those creatures be the seraphim? I would say probably not, because this adversary that we see in Genesis 3 was not the only of its kind. It was just maybe the chief of its kind, the first of its, but it wasn't the only of its kind. Let's go to the book of Numbers, right? I'm on the wrong chapter altogether. All right. So Numbers chapter 21, verse 4, from Mount Hor, they set out by the way to the Red Sea to go around the land of Edom. And the people became impatient on the way. And the people spoke against the Most High and against Moshe. Why have you brought us out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no food and no water, and we loathe this worthless food. That's mad disrespectful, right? Because Most High gave them manna, quail, and they was not satisfied. They did a whole Sabbath message on that, right? Then Yod-Heh-Wav did what? Sent fiery serpents. Now, these words, this word nakash and this word saraf, there are cognates elsewhere, right? In the ancient Near East, right? So you have to look at the cognates to kind of figure out this serpentine type of thing. However, linguistically, when we look at the grammar and look at the nouns that's used for these words, let's take a look to see what they are. You click on 6, you click on interlin, and then here, whoops, 6. Where am I at? Oh, it's got me in the wrong place. All right, click on 6. That's what happened. There we go. Click on 6, click on interlin. And we got here, why Salah Yahweh Ba'am et HaNechashim. That's the key. You see this? Your word Nakash is here. Nun Chet Shin is here. And this is the same word that we see for that creature in Genesis 3. But it says what? Ha-seraphim or seraphim. Right? It said pim, but pim would have the dagesh, but seraphim. Right? Ha-seraphim. This word saraf is your root word. Shin resh pe. Saraf. So how am I saying, okay, this is saying ha-nehashim, ha-seraphim, right? So they're calling them articles. Now, an article is a very unique grammatical component that can be interpreted in different ways. Sometimes it can be interpreted as an adjective. Sometimes it can be interpreted as a noun. Sometimes it can be interpreted as an adverb. It just depends, right? How it functions within the syntax of the clause. Now, there's an excellent video up on this on Accordance's website in their blog post, where they go into the Hebrew article, which is very intricate, right? I would advise, if you're at an intermediate level with the language, then you can begin to understand what an article is. But long story short, it's translated here as a noun. This article is translated as a noun, right? However, one can be an adjective and the other can be the noun that the adjective describes. So for example, here it says Haneshim HaSeraphim. So remember I told you Nakash can also relate to the word bronze. And I'll show you that in a second, right? So it can be descriptive of the seraphim. Looking at these two articles side by side, you understand how syntax works. This article here, the one that says serpents, they're identifying it as a noun, and they identified this article HaSeraphim as a adjective that describes the noun. This is how they have syntaxed it because of how they're interpreting this, right? Seraph, this means fiery, which is very interesting. I'm saying the Haneshim is descriptive or adjectival of the noun seraph, which is the root of HaSeraphim, which means I'm saying it's a type of seraph. This is a very unique type of seraph. It's not the one that we see in Isaiah 6. It's a totally different type, and it's plural. It's more than one. But check it out. Let's look to see what's going on here. Check it out. On verse 8, and Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh said to Moshe, make a what? Let's see what the Most High said to him to make. Let's see what the Hebrew word that there is. Okay. Again, the reason why I'm showing you this interlinear, so you can see I'm not making this stuff up, right? When I'm only saying what's there. I'm not adding nothing to it. I'm just showing you what's there. Vayomer Yahweh el Moshe aseh lecha sarap. Now look. Check it out. Look. You see this? Do you see this? Sarap. You see this? So this is your final pay. It's your suffix. It's not saying fiery serpent. That's not what's there, because we just looked up to see in Numbers 21, verse 6 says the Ha-Nashim, the Ha-Seraphim. This doesn't say fiery serpent. It just simply says Sarah. So if it's saying just simply Saraf, then why are they translating it as fiery serpent? No, they messed that up. It says, and Yahweh said to Moshe, make a sarap and set it on a pole. Now, what did Moshe do? Let's go to the next verse. Next verse is, Wayas Moshe Nahas Nehoset. Now look, let's slow down here. You see here, Nun Het Shin, Nun Het Shin, and it has a suffix of Tav. That's interesting because that is indicative of what's called a construct form of the word Neshet. Now, in this case, it's Nehoshet, but construct means this depends on the noun. It describes a noun, such as if I said the house of gold. Of is how we translate constructs in English. Hebrew, there is a diacritic mark. In this case, you see it right here, right? And then you have your suffix right here. So what you see under the sheen and your suffix designates a construct. It's a feminine singular construct of what? It attaches to Nahash. So it's a bronze serpent. That's what it says. So when the Most High told him to make a sarap, he made a Nahas, Nehoset. That's what he made. But then the Most High told him to make a sarap. So how is he making a Nakash? Oh, but Nakash is the same thing that we see in Genesis 3. They're interchangeable. It's a type of saraf. It's not the one that's in Isaiah 6. It's a different order of seraphim that are designated to watch over mankind. That's why that saraf was in the garden. It wasn't no snake. It was one of those entities that had another form. It probably had wings that we see from Isaiah 6. It probably had other features like maybe legs or something else. But what happened was it was transfigured when the Most High cursed it, and now it took on the semblance of serpent. So when we now fast forward to Numbers, now we're seeing these different entities coming like serpents attacking the children of Israel. You see what's going on here? Hopefully y'all are catching it and it's making some sense. But again, because a lot of churches where I learned this from didn't break it down like this to me, I was believing the stuff that they was telling, the myths that they was teaching about this stuff. Because that's all they was teaching was myths. There was a snake that spoke to the woman. Well, how is a snake speaking to a woman? A snake is an animal. It doesn't have the same cognition that humans do. Because if it did, what would make humans unique? Humans would not be unique if animals had the same abstract cognition that we have. We wouldn't be unique. What would be so unique about Adam and Eve? Communication, verbal communication, is unique amongst us. The only way an animal can speak, according to Israelite culture, is if you have divine intervention, such as that Melech, that messenger that stood before Balaam, and the donkey was there, and his mouth was open to speak to the man. He could not speak without some kind of divine intervention. We don't see anything about divine intervention allowing this creature, this snake, to speak to Adam and Eve. Therefore, it's not a snake because it takes on snake-like qualities after it's cursed. All right? All right. So hopefully that begins to help the sister that was asking. Shout out to Jacolia's Gems, Shalom. The sister that asks. Yeah, book, chapter, and verse. Facts. I mean, yeah, that's what the text says. Yeah, it's very interesting. Shout out to Kivesa Avuda. Shalom. I see you. All right. So yeah, if you're enjoying this, family, hit the thumbs up. Let me know if you want to keep going. So let me finish the rest of Genesis 3 for the sister Janelle. I don't see her here no more. No problem, brother Seth. No problem. So let's go go back to the rest of Genesis chapter 3. And I want it to be brief, but I see you're asking a lot of questions about it. I want to make sure I cover everything. You see, all I'm simply doing is showing you how I derive my conclusion based on the data that's there. I'm just basing this on the data that's there. I'm not giving you no theology. I'm giving you culturally, based on the cultural data that we see that's left here. Now remember, this cultural data in the material culture or in the excavational finds of these people that are writing this, they left items behind. So we go and examine the serpent. Matter of fact, there's a whole book on this. Let me show you guys the book real quick. And again, if you're not signed up for our Patreon, it's www.patreon.com/DivineProspect. Sign up for our Patreon and get access to all of this material. There is a book that I have on the Patreon that goes into this extensively. Matter of fact, I made a whole post on this on social media. Okay. Let me pull it up for you. All right. And I'm going to show it to you on my screen. Here it is. It's called Playing with Leviathan, Interpretation and Reception of Monsters from the Biblical World. This goes into everything we're talking about the snake. This is an excellent, excellent book. All right. And we have it available on the Patreon if you're interested in reading it. It goes into detail about this. Okay. Thank you so much, my brother, for the donation. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. So Sharpening Swords Ministry says, Salakia, will there be a link tonight? Are you talking about a link to the KHM Raleigh chapter launch? We might live stream it. I might live stream it. I know I'm going to record it for sure, but we might live stream it. If we do live stream it, I will post it. If we don't, that just means that we're just recording it and it'll be posted up. Okay. Seth, you're right. In the Book of Jubilees, it does mention that. It does mention that. And again, I put I put a great deal of value on the book, or parts of the book of Enoch and Jubilees, because I understand the objective of why those oral traditions were laid down, right, in text format, in regards to talking about it. Oh, you mean to come on the show and ask questions? Oh, you trying to come on the show right now? Is it a discussion you want to have, or you just have a question? If you have a question, just put it in the chat. But if you want to initiate a discussion, let me know. So AJ Bethia says, what's the difference between the church app versus the Patreon? So the Patreon deals with our scholarship side of the ministry, right? We give you access to tons of articles, books, websites, software tools, language courses, etc. And that's what you're investing in. You're investing in because you want to learn more about the information we share on this channel in regards to the scholarship we utilize, and Patreon allows you access to that. Plus, it gives you exclusive videos, early access content before it hits YouTube and stuff like that. The My One Church app is our KHM app for the ministry side of things that deals with the community, networking, joining chapters, putting work in the community, having a surplus of funds. So in the case that a member needs something, we can provide it. It takes care of the funding or the upstart capital for our programs and services. It helps to pay out stipends to brothers and sisters that are volunteering to work with the ministry, etc. So that's the difference, right? The My One Church app and the membership dues that allows you to become an official member of KHM. And then once you're a member, you get contacted to make sure you're active in the ministry, because we don't want anything from you if you're not active. It's an investment. So that is if you want to get active and hands-on and work with the community at large, get into the physical community, put in work, be part of a network, a team of people, work and volunteer, get compensated for it. You know, if there's a financial emergency, we have surplus in the storehouse we can give to you. So that deals with the physical side of ministry. The Patreon deals with the scholarship side of ministry. They're two separate things, but they are both part of KHM. So KHM, we deal with the scholarship side and the physical community work, right? Those are the two things we deal with. And we try to merge it in our tagline, culture, community, autonomy. So the scholarship deals with the culture side, and community and autonomy deals with the physical hands-on work. So hopefully that was able to answer your question, my brother. All right. All right. So Nina Bina. So I just read from the Targums, and the Targums gave information that it could walk and these beings can talk. How do we know these beings can talk? Well, let's go to the text itself and let the text answer it for us, right? Let's go back to Isaiah. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 6. All right, let me share my screen. All right, Isaiah chapter 6. All right, and check it. I showed you that this, whatever this entity is, it has 6 wings, okay? And it can fly with 2 of those wings, all right? Verse 6 says, then one of the seraphim flew to me, having in his hand, so this thing does have hands from what the text is saying, and it has wings. So we know it has hands, and we know it has wings. Having in his hand a burning coal that he had taken from the tongs from the altar, and he had touched my mouth and said, so we know this thing has three pairs of wings, 2 cover his face, 2 cover his feet, 2 it flies with, and it has hands that it can pick up a tongue, get some coal, and put it on his lips. And then it speaks. And it says, behold, this has touched your lips, your guilt taken away, and your sin is atoned for. Now, this is the text interpreting itself. This is a seraph doing this. Okay? Now, remember, we're connecting this back to what we see in Genesis 3. Just looking at the language. The language shows us the word seraph here, and the connection between Isaiah 6 to Genesis 3 is Numbers 21, where it uses both words interchangeably. So what I'm sharing with you is just based on the textual data, not my interpretation of the data, because that requires a different dissertation and layout for you. But just looking at clues within the language of the text, it shows you that there's interconnectedness. And if you look at its cognates in the ancient Near East, you'll be able to see more information. That's why I shared that book with you, because you'll see more details in that. So I'm not here to teach against what brothers and sisters teach in the community. A lot of things they say have great value, but there's some nuances that I disagree with them on. And we're entitled to disagree because we're all different. We're not all the same, right? So if you're saying that somebody teaches one thing and you share it with me in here, if I respond to it, it's not a direct attack on that brother or sister, whoever's teaching that. I'm simply trying to explain my position is based on the textual data and then understanding the ancient Near East in which the text was written in. It was written in that environment. It was not written in a vacuum, isolated outside of ancient Near East. We have to consider it along with ancient Near East. Okay. So hopefully that helps to answer that question. All right. Sharpen the sword, yes, but I'm not at home right now. So that will have to be taken up at future time when I'm at home and I'm settled, have all my resources stuff in front of me. All right, here I just took my computer and that's it. Okay, so just let me know. All right. So my brother, Yahoo Seth Ben Israel, I'm so honored to hear you say that, my brother. I am only at this stage because I have made a sacrifice based on my commitment to what Yah has assigned me to do. I simply told Yah, give me the wisdom, check it out, to teach the people how to feed themselves. That's all I want to do. Once I discovered things, I said, how can I train other people to have their own path of discovery in my absence? I don't want nobody to rely on me 24/7, 365 as their teacher. I got to go to Divine all the time. You only go to me when you hit a roadblock, after you use the tools to pave your own path. And as you're transversing that path, I've already pioneered one. You have to transverse your other. I say, hey, look, on this road, you're going to need A, B, C, F, and G, because when you're going down these roads, it's going to be like this. I made this path here, but you're going this way. So here's the tools to lay down your own path, but you're going to encounter A, B, and C along the way. I'm not there to make the path for you. I'm not there to take you on my path. That's not my job. My job is to train you, give you the tools, the methods, and the sources so you can carve out your own path and go where Yah's taking you, right? So when you teach like that, you become less confrontational, right? You become less argumentative, because the objective is I have made my own path, but everybody's not going to have the same path as me. But as a teacher, I'm to equip you. You know, that text says, train up a child in the way that it should go. Now, again, this is why I want to go into children and their perspective and worldview and how they're, you know, identified, acknowledged within the Israelite culture and community. Is very fascinating, but it's the biology that meets culture. Culture is trying to address biological changes to the child, right? Internally, right? Physiologically, you know, anatomically, etc. And then the culture is addressing that so it can resolve issues that it experienced in the past. So it creates a system or a paradigm to solve issues. And that is rites of passage and acknowledgement of the role of the child. So a reason why I say this, because when the text says train up a child in the way it should go, that word child that's used there is not always exclusively of a little boy. It can also be an untrained grown child. You know, somebody that's like in their 30s and is unschooled at all. So training does not mean, okay, I'm a doctor, so I'm going to turn my child into a doctor. No. Train means give you the tools that I utilize, that I was able to yield my success from, and give you the tool, those same tools, so you can be successful on the journey that Yah's called you to go, or whatever you set out to do. All right. Yes, Earth Sun Prince. On the Patreon, we have Biblical Hebrew and Biblical Greek language courses, and we also have Ugaritic, and we also have Syriac language courses. So we have 4 language courses on the Patreon, and all of them assume you don't know anything about language. And that's the awesome thing about them. So you can definitely sign up for the Patreon and learn the language at your own pace. And what we do in our classes is language is just one of many components to us teaching, to that paradigm. Because paradigm is not just isolated with just the language. The language in itself, knowing what it is fine, but not know how to interpret it within a context is which lies a difficulty. Hence why you need to know stuff about history. You need to know stuff about customs and mannerisms, geographical locations, migration patterns, oral traditions, etc. Okay. All right. Facts, my brother. Well said, my brother Yahusef. So again, I'm not here to contend with my brothers. I do have some disagreements with them. I do have some differences, and that's expected. We're all learning independent of each other, right? So that's expected, and I'm okay with having dialogues about those discrepancies, but I'm not going to allow those discrepancies to build a wedge between me and that brother. I'm not going to do that. If anything, we're going to build our bridge first, and then we can cross each other's paths and examine the other side after we build a bridge, okay? Yes, Nina. Okay, so Nina, give me that last question, and then I'm going to end off on that. Let me finish Genesis 3. I'm going to answer Nina's question, and then I'm going to close out, family, because I have to be prepared for tomorrow, okay? You said, why did Yeshua go over the eye for an eye text in Exodus 21, then basically promote being passive? My husband and I are at odds, and I do not want passive kids. All right. Excellent question. Hold that question, eye for an eye. Let me deal with what I see here. Now, I'm going to address that with you. Remember, people take that out of context all the time, especially when Yeshua says to turn the other cheek. But who was he talking about? You always have to identify the immediate audience or the recipient audience of the author's message within the narrative. The text tells you who he was talking to. He's referring to Torah. Torah is not saying you and a Gentile, you and a foreigner, but those verses are referring to you and your brother or sister that is of kin, the same likeness, the same ethnicity as you. That's your brother. Anybody outside of that is a foreigner, a stranger. They are goy, they are ben nakar, all right? They are gar. These are other words used for stranger and foreigner, etc. All right? Do we practice nida mikveh? I mean, some people do. If some people decide that they want to do a ritual cleansing after their period, then more power to you. You know what I'm saying? If you can keep that, great. If you can't because the captive land you in is perpetually unclean, then the Most High understands it. The objective is to make an effort or at least apply a principle from it. Okay. All right. So let me go back to Genesis 3. Let me get Nina. Sharpening swords, you asked me a question about Edom and Rome, right? Esau and Rome. That was your question? Because I'm trying to end this off at 2 hours, because anything over 2 hours, people complain, oh, it's too long, oh, I can't share it all. People just complain when things are over 2 hours. I don't know why. They watch back-to-back movies on Netflix, because I see them posted on social media. But when it comes to this, oh, that's too long, man. That's too long. Oh, why divine on for 2, 3, 4 hours, man? And then they go post on social media, yo, I watched this series back to back to back to back. So people want entertainment more than they want education. That's just the way it is. Some people, you know, they make excuses so they can stay ignorant, so they're not obliged to do anything, right? That's just what it is, okay? So let me address those questions, right? Genesis 3, let's finish the rest of it, and then I'm going to go to Sister Nina's question, all right? So let me share my screen again. Okay. And it says, I will put enmity between you and the woman. So I'm going to make y'all against each other. We see this also fulfilled in Revelation 12. However, the Targum, the Neophiti Targum, which I believe is the best Targum, I don't prefer Ankelos. I don't prefer Jonathan. I prefer the Neophiti. Right? That's my preferred Targum. And there's a reason from that when you look at them textually, right? But that's another conversation. But I'm going to show you what it says about this, which is very interesting. It says, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. So who is this talking about? Well, let me show you something. When you go to Revelation chapter 12, go to Revelation chapter 12. And again, I don't mind teaching things a million times, family, right? Because even when I teach it again, there's another angle or something new that's injected based on the current discussion, right? So I don't mind teaching it again. However, I always like to go back and give you references, whether it's another past live stream or video or lecture that I taught it, or there's another book you can read on that information, okay? So I don't mind doing it. I'm patient enough to do that. I just always let you know that I've taught on it already, that it's out there, and that's why I don't have to go too in depth with it, right? But when we go to Revelation 12, it says the woman and the dragon. So now there's a beef that's going on between a dragon and the woman, right? And then it talks about the woman giving birth, right? Now that's interesting, right? Now war rose in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon's angel fought back, etc. We know about that, right? But look at verse 13. And when the dragon saw that he had been thrown down to earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. Now, at this point up here, right, whoever this dragon is, it says, and another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon had 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his heads 7 diadems. His tail swept down a third of the stars of heaven and cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she bore her child, he might devour it. Right? She gave birth to a male child, one who was to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. But her child was caught up to the Most High, to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by the Most High, in which she is to be nourished for 1,260 days. Now, the interesting thing here says, but her child was caught up to God. When you ask Christians, who is this child? They tell you that's God. You say, well, the text says that the child was caught up to God. In the Greek, we have a preposition here to understand things, and we have kai, the conjunction, that separates 2 clauses that lets you know there's 2 separate clauses, but they have some kind of relationship. All right? And to his throne. Interesting. And then so that happens, then this happens, the war happens after that, and then this happens. So that way, after the child he was unable to get the child because it was caught up, then he wars. Then he's cast down. Then he sees that the woman is still here. Who's the woman? The woman is Israel. Israel's the woman. And what happens is, check it out. We're going to go to verse 17. Then the dragon became furious with the woman and went off to make war on the rest of her offspring and on those who what? Keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Yeshua. And he stood on the sand and the sea. The beef today is with those who keep the commandments of the Most High and hold to the testimony of Yeshua. What was Yeshua's testimony? Yeshua's testimony is repent, for the kingdom is at hand. What he did was get Israel out of the direction they were going, where they became, these offspring of Hashatan's realm into the kingdom realm. And when he did his teachings, he told you how to navigate in the spiritual essence, because he was giving the etiquette to prepare for the banquet that would then happen. We see later on in the book of Revelation. He was teaching them the etiquette so they could be prepared for the banquet. So who is this talking about specifically when it says her offspring, those who keep the commandments? This is why we look at other manuscripts, other versions of the same oral, because this was oral before it became written. And one of those things, we see some information or insight from the Targum Neophiti, right? So the Targum I'm going to share with y'all, and you'll be able to see what it is that I'm talking about. Okay? So check it out. So in the Targum, it says this, and I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between the seed of your son and the seed of her sons. And that shall be when the sons of the woman keep the commandments of Christ, the 10 commandments, the commandments of the law. They will be prepared to smite you on your head, but when they forsake the law, you will be ready to wound them in their heel. Nevertheless, for them there shall be a remedy. So that means if they fail to keep the law and the serpent prevails, the text says they're going to be given a remedy. But when he is being defeated because we're keeping the commandments, see, your power is in keeping these commandments. And then King Messiah, which is talking about here, which during that time period in the 1st century CE, those adherents to this book of Revelation, their King Messiah in their mind, in their eyes, in their sight was Yeshua and his testimony, where he was talking about the kingdom that's to come. Repent, because the time has come. That was his gospel. Then he was martyred because he knew he was going to die for what he did. And through the shedding of his blood, his objective was to bring together all the lost sheep of Israel into one fold. Okay. And it says, but for you there will be no medicine, and they shall make a remedy for the healed in the days of King Messiah. Yeshua was preparing for them for the king that's to come to rule over Israel. But he did not come to destroy the law of the prophets. He came to fulfill it. Fulfill means bring it to its consummation by getting us back to our culture, which takes us out of the culture of the nations. Remember, the Israelites were dispersed out of the land in exile because they took on the customs and manners of the nations around them that they were forbidden to do and prohibited to do in the Torah or the Chumash, the first 5 books. You understand? So now when we put all this together, we understand that the only remedy that we have if we're bitten from not keeping the commandments is the testimony of Yeshua, who talked about the kingdom to come. Okay. All right. I appreciate that, my brother, Earth Son Prince. No problem. I'll continue to do that. All right. All right. So check it out. Let's go back to Genesis 3, and I'm going to answer the sister's question eye for an eye, and I'm going to close out, okay? Because I can't really do it right now, so I got to close out because, again, I need to get some rest. I need to unwind and settle in, and then I'll be prepared for tomorrow. But, again, if you're in Raleigh, North Carolina, or you know somebody in Raleigh, North Carolina, please go to all my social media outlets, DivineProspect on Facebook, at Kingdom Moments on Instagram, DivineProspect on Twitter, and look at the community tab on this YouTube channel. There's a community tab, and you'll see the flyer. Grab that flyer, share it everywhere. If you're not in Raleigh or the surrounding areas, give it to somebody you know that is in North Carolina, because they need to converge there later on today. This is a life-changing experience to be able to see a game plan that can translate the things we learn in Torah into a viable paradigm to resolve the societal ills that we experience in our communities, to bring us a relief, to bring us shalom in alignment with Jeremiah chapter 29 and verse 7. Okay? All right. So let me go back to Genesis 3, and then I'm going to deal with that eye for an eye. Because some people will say, well, Yeshua came, and what Yeshua did was he changed the law. They say that, but they don't understand what midrash is. He was performing midrash. He was not changing the law. Do you know what midrash is? Midrash is when a rabbi or a more gives you some additional insight into something that's in the text. Man, they got a lot of reading to do, a lot more reading to do, and being humble to understand that perspective. I'm not trying to convert nobody. I'm just trying to show you the data that I utilize to draw my conclusion. So you don't think that I'm just believing something that just dropped out the sky, where some of these teachers tell you that they got some revelation from God, and then I hear what they're saying. I'm like, oh, I know the book that's in. Oh, I know the book that's in. Oh, I know what rabbi said that. Oh, I know what commentator said that. My objective is my expertise is learning the provenance of these ideas, these thought forms, these egregores that take on a life of their own. And to know where people are getting this information from. They're reading other texts, and they're not telling you where they're getting that information from. But if you ask me, I'll tell you what the source is. I said, oh, yeah, I heard so-and-so teach that. This is where they got it from. Oh, yeah, I heard so-and-so teach. This is where they got it from. So it's not original to them. This is where it's coming from. But neither here nor there. My brother, Warfare, Reformation. Yes, I got it, my brother. I think we should be set for next week to do that premiere. Okay, so I don't want to let the cat out the bag just yet. I want the people to wait in anticipation, because we have a new animation coming out soon. Okay, I think I'm saying too much, but some of us have transitioned to the truth who used to watch anime and probably miss your anime. Well, now we're making truth anime. Shout out to my brother Warfare, Rebirth of a Nation. It's a wrap. Shout out to Yashara Discovery Channel. Shabbat Shalom, my brother. Shabbat Shalom. All right, so let me go back to Genesis 3. Let's just finish this off. And let's get eye for an eye. Okay. All right. To the woman, he said, I will surely multiply your pain in childbearing. In pain, you shall bring forth children. So the initial plan was that she would not have pain that is unbearable during childbirth. But because of her disobedience, this is what she will be experiencing. Why? Because there will be a change in her anatomy. A change. It's very interesting when you look into human biology, human anatomy, in regards to women giving birth. The birth canal is only but so big, and it's because changes occurred, right, to the anatomy of the woman over time. This is what science posits, right? And I have tons of articles on this. I study this extensively. And because the cranium of humans have not evolved at the same degree as the vaginal opening of the woman, therefore pain is caused, right? So when the child is in the wombs of women now are much smaller than they were back in the past. So that's why when the child's transitioning and so forth, there's birth pains, there's different things going on, prostaglandins and things of those nature are produced. And other things are going on during that process that bring forth pain, right? Inflammation is targeted by cytokines, etc. So all these processes, they believe, was much different maybe 15, 20, 30,000 years ago, okay? And then during the evolution, the body did not keep up with other parts of the body. It's like independent evolving, right? Evolvement elements of the body. And this is why pain happens. But there's a whole process when it comes to the birthing process and looking at the fetus and its development and how the woman's body handles that, right? So the reason why I say this is also because most women who give birth today are giving birth on their back. It's not natural. Okay, that's extremely unnatural. But there's a reason why hospitals prescribe that method, and that's a different conversation altogether. Nonetheless, at this point, the woman's body was designed to be able to give birth without pain, but because of the disobedience and the role that she played, now her plan would be multiplied in bearing children. And it says, your desire shall be contrary to your husband, but he shall rule over to you, right? So you may have a separate will outside of the pack, but because of your husband's role within the home, then he shall be the one that oversees the things, even though you have a desire outside of that, right? It's going to be towards your husband. The same thing is said in Genesis 4 when it talks about sin and Cain's relationship, all right, where the sin tries to overtake Cain, but the Most High says you shall rule over it. Well, the same thing here, right? The woman is going to be controlling the man, but she will wind up being the weaker vessel, quote unquote, and be subservient to the man now, where before the initial design was they are side by side. As long as you're in a state of disobedience, there will always be some shuffling in regards to the roles of the genders. They will always be in opposition with one another. But when we understand the Edenic model, the objective is to strive to reinstate that. And again, this is what we see some of the apostles attempting to do in their epistles, is trying to restore that order, right? So that things is reflective of the Edenic model, where the woman was not made from the rib of man. She was made from the inner chamber, where the Most High took out wisdom from man and manifested the woman. How do we know that? You can go into the archaeological record, sister cultures, and interpret what we read in the book of Proverbs, where it talks about the master builder side by side with the Most High, and that was Chokmah. And Chokmah is reflected through the woman. I did a whole social media post on this. Okay. And to Adam, he said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife, remember the desire thing, very interesting dynamic, right? And have eaten of the tree, because the Most High gave the commandment directly to Adam. So Adam, if he gave you the commandment and your wife, because you wasn't there when the conversation happened, but you happened to be there when the food was given. So we know based on the Hebrew that man was there present at some point before the eating of the fruit. She didn't go walk to him and give it to him, but at some point he was present and they ate the food together. But he was not there to protect her. So I spoke on Sister East channel, and somebody asked me, well, what do you mean when it talks about the woman's head covering and the angels? Well, what it's saying is when the man is absent outside the home, The home is vulnerable to spiritual attack. The women has a spiritual inclination to do well, right? Because that's the wisdom essence, but she needs the structure of the man and the protection of the man to be the priest of the home. So the woman always is emanating wisdom. Some women don't even know how to tune into their intuitive emanations. They don't. And therefore, sometimes it comes out wrong because they think it makes them weak, it makes them vulnerable. No, that's your strength. Your feminine intuition is your strength. And when you're in right alignment with Yah's will, then the man will continuously draw from that and put that into consideration for the decisions he makes to protect the household, to provide, and etc. It's a whole dynamic. It's a whole dynamic. I taught this in the past before. So understanding this, the Most High saying, since you listen to the voice of your wife, because you was not there to shield her from this entity speaking to her, you failed. That was your job, sir. You failed. And you eat in the tree, which I commanded y'all. No. I commanded you. Let's verify that according to the language. You click on 17. You go to interlin, stands for interlinear. And we look what see the Hebrew says, right? Check it out. Ule Adam, and to Adam, Amar ki samarta lekol istaka, your wife, what to call, and have eaten mean ha'et, which is the tree, I share that I commanded you. Now this word here, ka, can be you or your, second person masculine singular, which means he's only referring to the man when he's saying this. I gave you the command, not her. I gave you the command. That's how she learned about the command. Men, are you in your place in the home? So when it says a woman has to wear a covering on her hair naturally was long and vibrant and flowing. That was her covering. And it also symbolized that she was in right alignment and order with the man in her life. But when she cut it or shaved it in certain cultures, that custom was aligned with what? Disobedience to the man. You got to go back and look at those Grecian cults that was there in Corinth. It was done in defiance of man having authority over her. And when we say authority, what does that mean? That means the man doesn't have authority, mean your property. Because remember, at the Sister East channel, I showed that women were not property. Anybody that tells you that, they don't know the text. Women were not property. Properties don't have a say-so on what happens. Women did. Okay? So a woman was not property. And if you look at the original order of things, they were side by side. So anyway, which I commanded you, I gave it to you, Adam. Your job was to shield her. Her hair is representative that a man is covering me. And I'm in alignment with order based on the tradition. That's what Paul was dealing with in Corinthians, 1 Corinthians. I think he was dealing with the tradition. That's covering her. Because when her hair was cut or shaved and she didn't have something covering it, that symbolized that that woman was in defiance of the order of the home. And that I don't need no man. So in those times back then, instead of saying I could work and take care of myself, they would just cut their hair and say, yo, no man is over me. Ain't no man gonna have no authority on me. What? Nah, I'm good. I don't need no man. Feminism shows the preference to the gender of the woman in defiance of masculinity or masculine energy. Womanism attempts to restore the role of the woman within the harmony of masculinity and femininity. That's important. Okay. I know I'm probably dropping some jewels right now and sometimes it's going off, but I'm just sharing this because I think that it's important that somebody hears this. I think it's very meaty and I think it's good to help to restore relationships, right? So in understanding that which I've commanded you, this is to the man. So remember, I don't have to give you my opinion. I just go to the text. The textual data supports what I'm saying. I'm only speaking based on the textual data, right? You shall not eat of it. Curses the ground before you. No, Adam, you're not cursed. The ground is. You can't be cursed. I bless you, but the ground is. And because you're outside the garden, what happens is the environmental factors in your new environment, the ecological factors in your new environment weigh on your natural body. So now the day-night cycles are now taking effect because before it was a perpetual day There was no night for the seventh day, but now you're outside the garden. So now you got to work, which is going to add years to your life. Okay. Toil. Okay. Struggle to survive. Deal with time now. Now you're in time. Okay. So now there's a shift or a change to your anatomy because of your disobedience. They're intertwined and connected. Okay. And then it says, in pain you shall eat it all the days of your life. In pain you shall eat. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you, and you shall eat the plants of the field. It still says plants here. It doesn't say meat yet. That doesn't come into Noah. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground. For out of it you were taken, for you are dust, and to dust you shall return. Okay, so hopefully that helps to break down that. But again, the man was not cursed and the woman was not cursed. There was no curse. There was consequences. The only thing that was cursed was the serpent, because the serpent knew better. Adam and Eve should have known better, but the serpent is a much more highly evolved creature and a being that it should have known much better. So it was cursed because it corrupted Yah's creation. So it was corrupted. So it was some kind of seraph that was set as a watcher to watch over the garden, and it interfaced with Eve and decided to get her to rebel against the authoritative figure. Again, the serpent did not directly oppose. When this was going on, the serpent did not speak back. What did the serpent say back to the creator? Nothing. The serpent is not antagonistic to the creator in a sense where it has any viable power structure to rebel against the creator. That's why even in Revelation chapter 12, you see the war's not started with the dragon and Yah. It started with the dragon and Michael, because the dragon cannot oppose the creator. This dualism concept is something that's foreign to Hebraic thought and was introduced by way of Zoroastrianism and then later Greco-Roman culture. All right. All right. So, yes, take a look at that, Yeshua. I think that's a good read from what I didn't read that book, but I read reviews on it. And I think that's an excellent book to get in regards to that. All right. Yes, Stacks, they do. Yes. All right. So let me get to the last point, and I'm gonna end off on here because we almost at 2.5 hours. And the last one was eye for an eye. And again, Yeshua is performing Midrash. I've given at least 6 books on this. They're all available on the Patreon, by the way, where I explained this to you, and then I also broken down to you to understand the context of what's going on. So let's get this Sermon on the Mount. That's what they tell you it is, right? The Sermon on the Mount. Let's get it. Okay. All right. Let's go to Marietta chapter 5. Let me bring it up on the screen. All right, in verse 38. You have heard it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Now, the key thing is context, family. Please, please, please. We're going to stop there. The key thing is context. Let me show you the context. What's the context for Matthew chapter 5 and 38? I'm going to show you how to use these online tools. Those of you who are signed up for the Patreon, you have access to Accordance at the $20 tier and Accordance and Logos at the $50 tier and the paid versions of these software. So not the freebies, the paid version of the software you have, okay? However, those of you who don't have access to those Bible software, there's free software online. BibleHub.com is one of them. But let me show you a tool in here that's used for cross-referencing, all right? Let's see what verse of the Old Testament Hebrew Bible Tanakh is this coming from, and what is its context? All right, so look. Okay, this is important, all right? Verse 1 says, seeing the crowds, he went up on the mountain, and when he sat down, his disciples came to him, and he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, okay? Now, he's talking to the people that was following him, all right? And when he went throughout all Galilee teaching in their synagogues, who goes to the synagogues? The Jews. And proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every disease and every affliction among them. So his fame spread throughout all Syria, and they brought him all sick, those afflicted, and great crowds followed him from Galilee and Decapolis and from Jerusalem, Judea, and beyond the Jordan. All right. So people were thronging him for more of what he can give to them, not what he was there to show them. They just wanted the benefits of his presence. They didn't want the relationship that his presence brings. It's very sad how they treated him. That's why he says, "Oh, Jerusalem, you kill all of your prophets." Remember, I told you the manuscript called The Lives of the Prophets. And it breaks down how most of all the prophets were martyred and killed by their own people. That's the life of a prophet. But some of your Christians run around saying, "I'm a prophet. I want to be a prophet." Okay. Hey. Martyrdom comes with that. The moment that they face some sharp persecution, they back off because they're not built for that. Okay. All right, so let's go down. Again, the key thing is context. When you get here to Matthew chapter 5, verse 38, you click on 38. And when you scroll down, you have here on your right something that says cross references. Okay. So cross references, it gives you Exodus 21:24, Leviticus 24:20, and Deuteronomy 19:21. All right. So when we go there, let's go to Exodus 21:24. And let's go and get the context. Actually, let's go back. Let's go to Devarim. Okay, let's get Devarim. Let me open it up. Because well, I'm gonna get back to Exodus 21. Let's do Devarim real quick. All right. All right. Then it says, let's start at verse 18 so we can see context. The judges shall inquire diligently, and if the witness is a false witness and has accused his brother falsely, accuse his brother. Let's look up that word brother to see what's there. Let's see if it's the word nakar, gar, goy. Let's see what word it is. Those are all words for foreigners, okay? The word here is what? Ak, your kin, your brother, okay? Let's go back to Exodus. I'll go back to Exodus 21:25. Go to context. All right. It says, when men strive together and hit a pregnant woman so that her children come out, but there is no harm, the one who hit her shall surely be fined, as the woman's husband shall impose on him, and he shall pay as the judges determine. But if there is harm, then you shall pay life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. Okay? That means if you kill my child, I get to kill your child. That's what that means. But is this something that was done left and right? No. When the Israelites was going into depravity and they committed they was doing all types of debauchery and rebellion against the Most High, did he wipe them all off the face of the map? The times that he was going to do it, Moshe intervened and reminded him, but yeah, you said, but yeah, what will happen if others hear this and hear that? So therefore, this was not happening left and right because a degree of mercy is given. So what's happening is, because something's on the law, like on the books, does not mean that it is enforced all the time. There's police officers that they catch you speeding, they can write you a ticket, or they can just get you off what's called a slap on the wrist. They have the leniency to do that. They have the discretion to do that. Same thing with a judge. The judge can throw the book at you, or the judge can look at what's called mitigating factors, and he can say, okay, I'm going to let you off the hook this time. You're just going to pay a small fee instead of doing jail time. So when it comes to our brothers and sisters, we are given the option, if we choose to, do the eye for the eye, tooth for the tooth. But what Yah says is that now in this, through Yeshua and the captive safe that you're in, y'all can't afford to be killing each other. Y'all got to do different things a little differently. The law allows this because it's said to do this. However, you are also given leniency whether to carry it out or not. That's up to the discretion of the individual. Okay? Hopefully you understand yourself. The context is your brothers and your sisters, not a foreigner. That's important. All right? So let me go into this. All right? Seth, yes, it does say that, and that's an interesting elaboration on what we covered earlier. But I don't know about shaving heads in pre-flood culture. Any antediluvian art that we have from Mesopotamia and other worlds that mention floods, women still have their long hair. So things was just out of order then. However, the Israelites came on the scene, and the Most High instituted, codified their culture, turned it into a law for a polity because they became a nation. And then over time, when they went into captivity, they started adopting the customs of other cultures. So traditions was instituted in order to correct those things. And this is what Paul was talking about, 1 Corinthians chapter 11, that the household is open to the influence of divine messengers, whether they're positive or negative, when there's no man in the household and the woman does not have the symbol of covering on her head to show that she is subservient in order to the head of household, which is the man, right? So it's all about order and structure. If that man is unrighteous, he's not fit to lead the household. Therefore, she does not have to listen. The hearkening is based on what the man does. If the man beats and abuses the woman, he loses all authority for the woman to be subjective to him. That's just it. Because he's not supposed to injure. If you read all throughout the Torah, it talks about various injuries and what needs to happen if you injure somebody. So you can't just beat the woman. It doesn't work like that. All right. So the context is their own people. This is what it's talking about. So let's go back to what Yeshua was saying. Again, he's given midrash. All right. But I say to you, do not resist the one who is evil. But if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other cheek also. And if anyone would sue you and take your tunic, let him have your cloak as well. And if anyone forces you to go on 1 mile, go with him 2 miles. Give to the one who begs from you, and do not refuse the one who would borrow from you. Remember, he's talking to a particular audience. So he's referring to people there that are Torah keepers. And the point that he's trying to say is, if you extend mercy and leniency to others, it will be extended and given back unto you. It's a principle that's already in Torah. He just extended it. This is not to say, oh, the Romans are coming, let them beat us. Because if that was the case, he went and told the disciples, buy swords. Remember I told y'all, when you were going to your own people, don't get swords. Don't bring a money script, a purse, or nothing like what he didn't. He said, don't do those things. But then he did. He went in and said after that, after the time has come, go buy some swords. They said, yo, we got 2 over here. He said, that's good enough. I'm going to be numbered with the transgressors, so let's go and do it. Why would he tell them to bring swords knowing that they're going to approach the Romans? But told them, don't bring swords when you go to your own people. Are you understanding this? Is that making sense? Is that making sense somehow? Thank you, my brother Myron Henderson, for the donation. I appreciate that. Okay, let me know if that helps. All right, shout out to I am sister Hadasha, shalom sis. Mikael Eliezer, shalom. All right, so hopefully that helps. Shout out to sister Bevy Bev, shalom. My brother Yeti Hebrew Dre, shalom. He says, what is midrash? So midrash is similar to exegesis. It's a way of extracting the intended meaning of the text based on its context. Not your presuppositions, your ideas of what it should be, what you read into it, but how the text is, the author is intending the text to be understood by its recipient audience. So midrash is similar to exegesis, is that in the theology of Christianity, they call it exegesis. In the realm of Judaism, they call it midrash. Okay, means to seek out the meaning of the text. All right, so Yeshua was trying to get you to seek out the meaning of the text, and he was performing midrash. Anybody at this time, if a rabbi was to look at this without knowing this was Yeshua, they would say, oh yeah, this person is performing midrash. You know why? Because that type of stuff is found in the Talmud. What Yeshua was doing is found in the Talmud, right? So in regards to that, I touched on that in a previous lecture. So type DivineProspect prayer and watch the 2 live streams I did on that. And I addressed that. So it's not like, God, I want a house. That's not what that's saying. That's not the context of it, because we have cross-reference scriptures that shed light on what is intended there. So no, it doesn't mean that. You have to be doing the Most High's will, and the things that you are asking for cannot be the things that are driven by your lust or desires, James says. That's why your prayers are not being answered, because you're praying according to your lust and desires. When you learn that you are self-sufficient, when you rely on Yah, then you would rely on that for all that you need. Yeshua says, seek ye first the kingdom and his righteousness, and all things will be added unto you. He didn't say seek the things. Seek the kingdom and its righteousness, and everything else will be added unto you. That's important. Paul says that I've learned to be self-sufficient with food and clothing. I've learned to be self-sufficient, that I don't have to ask anybody for anything or ask Yah for anything, because even Shaul or Paul was a tent maker. So he also worked for his. So let's get back into our culture, shift back into proper cultural orientation of understanding the text. Because if you see it through the lens of Judeo-Christianity, you're going to see it through the lens of theology and religion. And we're trying to get you to see it from the indigenous cultural vantage point that gets lost because it is overwhelmed by people pushing religion, pushing dogma, and then pushing their presuppositions onto the text. All right? So this is about extending mercy. One of the characteristics of Yah is that he's merciful. That's what the text says. If you don't believe me, let's see it. Let's go to Devarim chapter 4, verse 31. All right. It says, for Yod-Heh-Vav, your power is a merciful power. He will not leave you or destroy you or forget the covenant with your fathers that he had sworn them. He is merciful. Okay. The word merciful here is rahum. Rahum. Now also, rahum can also mean the womb. We see that in Arabic. In old Arabic, it means the womb, because the womb is a place of safety, protection, and mercy. Because at any time, the mother can abort what's in the womb, but when she carries that which in the womb, she's being merciful to the fetus. She's extending herself. She's allowing the fetus to live within her. That's important. That's another level. That's deep. But even that word rahum is used abstractly. But if you look at it in the natural, it goes back to the cognate shared root or sharesh. That's a cognate with the word for womb. Okay. So hopefully that helps. All right. So consider extending mercy to your brother and sister instead of vengeance and justice, because at some point you also yourself will want to require mercy, but if you have not given it, you will not receive it. And that's simply what Yeshua was saying. Yes, even though you heard it said you can do this, I say to you, do this. And what he says for you to do is not nothing that he made up. Those things can also be found in Torah. Okay? So hopefully that answers your question. That's an excellent question, Seth. There's an actual book on that. You know I'm going to say that. I'll probably post it on the Patreon when I get back home. You're just going to have to remind me, because as soon as I stop this, a million other things come in and I'm pulled in many different directions. So send me a reminder on that. But the alluring part, now remember, the beautifying part came from the watchers. The watchers beautified the women. But remember, the watchers themselves had to have a masculine disposition, because they were able to come unto the women and produce offspring. Okay, this is what Yah said, or the Creator says to the serpent, quote unquote, the seraph in the garden, that it will have offspring that will both oppose the children that come from the woman. Okay, so they had to have had a masculine disposition in order to have that attraction to the woman. So now talking about the hair thing is interesting. Maybe you can look into that further in the antediluvian period and see if there's any art or any other sister cultures writing about that. That would be interesting to look into. I have not discovered that. That doesn't mean it's not there. I just haven't discovered that. But you can probably take it a little further than that. But yes, they were alluring to them because of their disposition, a masculine disposition. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. And the reason why they had that masculine disposition, because one of the traits of a masculine man is the innate ability to produce, to provide, and protect. Produce, provide, and protect. All right, 3 P's of masculinity: production, provision, and protection. All right. Yeah, you're right. You're right, Sister Santoine. All right. Well, that could be. The only thing I would charge you with doing, Yashara Discovery Channel, is look into it further to find some more data that will support that position. All right. The objective is, it's okay to insert belief when there's a lack of data, but why don't you search for the data first to see if the weight of the data is on that assertion or if it's somewhere else. And if it's somewhere else, are you willing to yield to it? And that's something that I had to learn in this journey. And it's just my 2 cents that I pass on to all you other studious scholars in here as well. Okay. Beit Israel, Genesis 6:6. You saying angels? Angels is something that came from Greco-Roman culture that had its influence on the Roman Catholic Church, that then had its influence on West Germanic tribes that were in Europe. So that concept, you think of angels, not the same thing. All right. The Bene Elohim is what the text says. The only place is really translated as angels if you go to the Septuagint. But the Septuagint is finding a word that they believe best intimates the semantical value of the word Bene Elohim, and that's why they put angels. I disagree with that. Okay, because then angels is something again, and Helios is something again that comes from Greco-Roman culture. So that's not the best way to understand what these entities were. They were part of what's called a divine council. Some of these were part of the direct members of the divine council. Some of them were the messengers of other divinities that were part of the divine council. And I explained to you earlier, they was on mountaintops looking down onto man. And what happens is, whenever that chief deity would come down to the mountain, those watchers had to give an answer for what's going on in the earth. We even see this watcher entity in the book of Daniel. Daniel was approached by a watcher. Its job was just to observe what goes on in mankind and report it back. That's why the Most High spoke to Hashatan and said to him, "What are you doing?" He said, "Going to and fro the earth." They have to give a report for what's going on. All right. I understand, Yasharal. So again, I'm not saying you're right or wrong. I'm just simply saying push your research further and see if there's any more data. Don't just centralize it simply to just Israelite culture, Israelite texts. You must look into the ancient Near Eastern continuum of data that exists and see if there's other cognates or shared thoughts or ideas and other sister cultures to see if it can give weight to what we see in the text. Now, you can't always use sister cultures to interpret the Israelite culture because the Israelite culture was unique. However, it can give some insight to places where it's absent in the text. Okay, so that's just some advice there. All right. Mikael Eleazar, no. Well, I can't say yes or no. I did a lecture called The Patriarchal Priesthood in the Bible Unveiled. If one of my admins can drop that in real quick before we close out. It's called The Patriarchal Priesthood in the Bible Unveiled. And in there, what I showed was that Midian, all right, he was the ancestor of Jethro, which means Midian was a Hebrew because he was from the union of Moshe and Keturah, right? And he was a Hebrew because Abraham circumcised all his children. He was commanded to do that. So he's a Hebrew in that sense, but he's not an Israelite. However, Midian passed down this priesthood system. You know, when Melchizedek encountered Abraham, Abraham maintained those priestly practices because then he was told to circumcise his household, turn to walk uprightly, You know what I'm saying? Be ye perfect. That was after he encountered Melchizedek. All these things he was told to do after he encountered Melchizedek. And the text says when he conferred on or gave gifts to his sons that he had with Keturah, he had something special aside for his son Isaac, but with Keturah's children, he conferred upon them gifts. And I say that one of those gifts that he conveyed, he conferred onto Midian was a priesthood. The Melchizedek order was maintained through there. And we see that because a heavy reliance on the son of Reuel or Jethro for the children of Israel when they were going into the wilderness. Moses said, hey, to his brother-in-law, yo, I need you with me. Why? Because you have eyes that can see. Deep. That's an idiom. It's deep. Right? So that priesthood stayed alongside the Levitical priesthood. And when they settled in the land, the Midianites, or that sect of Midianites called the Kenites, settled in the land, they settled with Judah, thereby bringing that Melchizedek order or that Melchizedek priesthood into the house of Judah. That's why Judah can be both priest and king. And that's why the Most High in Psalm 110 was able to extract from out of a Judite, which was David, extract out of him the Melchizedek order and conferred upon him and said, you're a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. And then in a future text, we see that the sons of David in the book of Samuel were called Kohanim or called priest. So hopefully that answers. All right. Thank you so much, my brother Bergen Paris. I appreciate the donation. No. So shout out to my brother Yeti Hebrew Dre. Yes, that was a while ago with me and him. I think that was back in 2017, if I'm not mistaken, when we did that. But anyway, no, the council cannot create. According to the text, there's only one creator. However, people have been given into the hands of these other divine council members when territories were parsed out of the land and handed over. You know what I'm saying? So no, according to the text, there's only one creator. And we see this in the book of Isaiah, Yeshayahu, where Yohewave always says that he is the potter. People are the clay. It didn't say him and other people. He is the creator alone. There's no other creator beside him. So in Israelite thought, those other divine council members cannot create people. They can control them, they can persuade them, but only Yah can create human beings. All right? So Ramal Yahu, the Nazarene, says, is the Hebrew Matthew translation legit? Which one? The Shem Tov? Is that one you're talking about? Which one? Thank you, Alexander, for putting that link there. So Jacolia's Gems says, how would you describe the hierarchy of angels, quote unquote? I like that quotation. It's very good. Seraphim, cherubs, wheels, thrones, etc. So there is a book on that. I would have to show you a chart to kind of better show you the hierarchy. But when we say hierarchy, we gotta be careful with that, because we're not saying that one being is more powerful than another. They just have different functions. Okay, they have different functions. A function does not, if I have a distinct function than you, does not mean I'm more powerful than you. It just means this is my function. For example, the cherubim that's by the throne of the Most High, they have a particular function. Are they more powerful than, say, Michael? We will never know. They never fought. It's not Marvel Comics, DC Comics, where these entities are fighting each other. We don't know. Anybody that tells you they know will have to tell you what textual data are you using to support that notion, right? So we don't know. So in regards to hierarchy, again, this all came from patristic sources and later the RCC, Roman Catholic Church, and their interpretations of the text and dealing their angelology, and their demonology. But the text does not tell you that the cherubim is stronger than the seraphim, or the seraphim is stronger than the cherubim. That's not there in the text. So anybody telling you that is just giving you their own assumptions. But unless you can have textual data to support it, it's just simply going to be somebody's opinion. All right. So hopefully that helps. All right. Facts. It's not Marvel Comics. People think in terms of the abstract imagination of what is this angel more powerful than this one? And you're over here thinking about something that is irrelevant to understanding the text. And the text didn't tell you, it's not telling you for a reason. That's not important. That's why the text is not telling you that. All right. So, sis, I have a book on our Patreon. No problem, sis. And I'm not saying that you believe it. I'm saying whatever inspired that question, right? Because it came from somewhere. Whatever inspired that question is taking the position that there is a hierarchy amongst angels, and that's what's called angelology. Angelology, it creates this hierarchy, and that's based on looking at other cultures. That's why I posted Hesiod's Theogony, which shows you the origin or the provenance of all the gods in Grecian culture. When you understand that Greco-Roman culture has influenced the theology of Christianity, then you understand this need or desire to create this hierarchy, because there is one when you go into Grecian culture. All right, that's where those type of ideas are coming from. Okay. Ramal Yahoo, yes. And matter of fact, I did a lecture called Baptized in the Tradition of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And in there, I make a reference to Eusebius's version of Matthew that he observed. And not just him, other church fathers like Origen, Jerome, etc., that also seen the version of the book of Matthew. That is legit. That is authentic. And from my position, I believe the closest preserved version of the book of Matthew that we have that best reflects that is what's called the Old Syriac Sinaiticus Palimpsest. The Old Syriac. So the Old Syriac Sinaiticus is my favorite version of the New Testament, because I subscribe to its version of Matthew that is the closest resemblance of that Hebrew Aramaic version of Matthew that the church fathers have seen. And we have Vubis and other authors that have also made that linkage as well. And I referenced them in that lecture. Okay. You want that link? Sure. Okay. After this, family, I'm out. I would love to be here with y'all forever, but I have something to do later on today. I have an obligation to those who show up, and I want to give them my all because it's almost 3 a.m. Okay. Okay. Let me post that link for y'all real quick. All right. Take your time and watch this. This video was about 4 hours long, and there's tons of information in it. Tons of information in it. So take your time and go through it. And if you have questions, feel free to email me or bring it up on the next live stream. Okay. All right. And no problem, sis. Jocolia. Hopefully I'm saying your name right, sis. On our Patreon, I have books that go into what we would call a hierarchy, right? It gives more information behind these various creatures that we see in the text. Okay. So hopefully that helps. All right. All right. Myron Henderson, yes, there are intertestamental works that we call pseudepigrapha, right? That actually talk about this contention between Moshe and Satan. All right. Now, if you want to know what that is, I have a book on Patreon. I have a book that goes into all of the pseudepigrapha of the intertestamental period and prior to the intertestamental period, and even post-intertestamental period, where that tradition is found there. So what you'll see in the what's called the New Testament or the Brit Hadashah, there's a lot of oral traditions that make its way in that text. Stuff from Jubilees, stuff from the Book of Enoch, stuff from the contention of the body of Moshe between him and Aharon. Other texts, even texts that we find, extra biblical texts we find in the Dead Sea Scrolls, are also found within what's called the New Testament. So the New Testament was not written in a vacuum. They also relied upon other oral traditions and sources of their day. Okay. And again, in that lecture, that that was posted by my mod, the patriarchal priesthood in the Bible. I unpack a lot of that in there. Okay. So Ramal Yahoo, the Nazarene, said, what's the best Patreon level to subscribe to for beginners? The $20. At the $20, you get all access, all the books, all the articles, early access, pretty much everything. Plus, you get access to the biblical Hebrew and biblical Greek language courses for absolute beginners. You get access to the Bible according to Bible study software. You also get access to some exclusive content that's only for the $20 tier, like the Incognito series and things of that nature. And some posts are hidden from the $10 tier and only made available for the $20 tier. The $50 tier is if you want to step it up a notch. $100 tier is if you want to go all out. But for a beginner and you want to get all the tools and sources and everything at your disposal to dive deep into the text like we've done on today or tonight, you want to start at the $20 tier. So if anybody's at the $10 tier, I might advise you to step up to the $20 tier so you can get access to more tools, so you can do a more in-depth Bible study. Because my objective at the end of the day is to equip you to be better than me, to do this better than me so I can learn from you. Because I'm always going to be a student first before I'm a teacher. I'm always going to be a servant first before I'm a leader. All right. So with that, I'm going to go, family. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Again, we'll wait to my next live stream where I will address more questions from you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this Q&A. I love you, family. Again, if you are in the Raleigh, Durham area or the surrounding areas, please converge here at the Embassy Suites at Raleigh Crabtree. And let's have a great time finding out a way to take all this deep knowledge and translating them into a paradigm to resolve societal ills here in the city of Raleigh and Durham. All right. Thank you for your time. I love you, family. I'm here to serve. If there's anything I could do to help you, please email me at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com or call our hotline 678-430-3832 Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can schedule an appointment to speak to me because I'm still available to talk to any and everybody. All right. Also, just to know, if you get here later on today and you're confused or can't find your way, you can call that same number and then we'll give you instructions, or text that number and we'll give you instructions. Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody, for the super chat. Thank you, everybody who just signed up for the Patreon, who just sent Cash App. We truly appreciate everything that you've sent to us. We utilize it to the best of our ability to enhance our scholarship, as well as use it to help those in need. And if you guys need anything, that's why I always put it out there for you to reach out to us. All right. Love you guys. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And if you are in the Raleigh Durham area, I'll see you later. And if you're not, share it everywhere on social media so we can give every Israelite that's in this area to converge at this place so we can get the work done that Yah intends us to do. And so we, as Israelites, we have the obligation to ensure peace is in these cities. And if there's no peace in the cities, it's because enough of us are not coming together to do our part. So let us be the fulfillment of what Yah desires, his will to be done here on the earth. All right. So love you, family. Speak to you soon. Peace and shalom.